the phone. I just want to see if we have all three of our participants on the phone line.
Sure, this is Alex Kim.
Hi, Alex.
Hey, Rebecca.
This is Sherry for Dr. Hurt. He'll be right in.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Sherry. I appreciate it. Theon, are you on the phone?
Good morning. Whoa, jeez. Apologies. Good morning. Better? Good. My rock band just had a show last Friday night, and the PA was such that you had to like kissing the foam on the mic, so I'm used to being up there. This is better, right?
Yes. Okay, we're going to give Theon a few moments to get on the line.
I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. This is Monday, May 15th at 10:07 a.m., 2017. We'll be calling the meeting of the Naturopathic Medical Committee under the Osteopathic Medical Board of California to order. Rebecca, would you like to take roll, please?
Sure. Thank you. Just as a reminder for those of you on the phone line, please go ahead and when your name is called, please state your location. Dr. David Field?
Present.
Dr. Tara Levy?
Present.
Dr. Greta D'Amico?
Present.
Dr. Michael Hurt?
Present.
Okay, would you please go ahead and state your location, please?
5620 Wilbur Avenue, Tarzana 91356.
Perfect, thank you. Dr. Theon Gordon? Dr. Gordon, are you online? Dr. Spar is not going to be with us today. Dr. Gregory Weisswasser? Dr. Dara Thompson? And Alexander Kim?
I'm present at 1150 South Bristol Street, second floor, Santa Ana, California.
Perfect.
92704.
Thank you. And I will go ahead and call Dr. Gordon offline. Hi, Theon, did you join us?
Yes, I was only on the computer at first. I thought the volume would come through there.
Okay, no worries. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you please give us your location?
Yes, I gotta pull the address up. It's lost. It's Foundation for Second Chances, nonprofit. And the address is 3734 West Lawson Avenue, Los Angeles, California, 90043.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right, so Rebecca, have we established a quorum?
Yes, we have.
And we have all of our conference sites open, teleconference sites are open to the public. The chair will entertain public comment for any items not on the agenda. All right, hearing none. Let's move to item number 3. Discussion and possible action regarding appointing replacement drug formulary subcommittee members. All right, for brief history here, when the Naturopathic Medical Bureau was formed with SB 907 in 2003, there was the creation of a requirement that the Bureau submit to the legislature a report on formulary, also a report on minor surgery or minor office procedures, and a report on natural childbirth attendance. So we, in the evolution of the Bureau to now a committee, we formed a subcommittee, which I believe, was it you, Greg, on the subcommittee, and Dr. Barrett? Oh, no.
It was Hurt.
Dr. Hurt and Dr. Barrett.
Barrett and Koshland.
And Peter Koshland, pharmacist, right. So we had a physician, a licensed naturopathic doctor, and a licensed pharmacy doctor on the subcommittee for the formulary. Dr. Barrett no longer serves on the Naturopathic Medical Committee, and we have need of this subcommittee to continue functioning. So the chair would entertain either nominations or volunteers who would like to take Dr. Barrett's place. And then I'd also like to speak with Dr. Hurt to see if he's willing to continue to serve on that committee. And I am sure that Dr. Koshland will continue to serve. Anyone interested in serving on, Dr. Thompson?
Yes, I'd be interested in serving.
All right.
Can you say more about what you think, given that the committee has already submitted reports twice, what their future actions may be, what they'll be asked to do?
Well, each of these reports becomes, we're fulfilling a mandate from the legislature to perform the reports. And with each legislative session, there are new members, and then there are new pieces of legislation that affect naturopathic practice in California. So as the political side of the naturopathic medical world moves towards a scope of practice commensurate with the training of a naturopathic doctor, this formula report becomes crux to that discussion, and it should be updated anyway, since formulary changes and the approach might change. So Dr. Dara Thompson has volunteered to serve on the committee, and I would take this opportunity to appoint her if I have that. Mr. Marcroft, I have that authority right now, is that right?
I believe that's right, yes.
Okay, you're in. Okay. Can I fire people with such aplomb as well? Or is that reserved for other presidents of other boards? Okay. Let's move on to number 4. Discussion and possible action regarding current drug formulary draft. So, Rebecca, do you want to bring us up to speed on this draft?
So, as a lot of you already know, there has been a lot of work on the subcommittee, the formulary drug subcommittee. Back in 2007, I believe, the first one of the, I think it was 2007, let's just take a look. Yes, January 2007, there was a findings and recommendations report that was provided to the legislature at the time. When we were first created, the act was first created, the intent was to have the committee at the time, Bureau, make recommendations onto what the drug formularies, how it was going to be in place, that type of thing. So in 2007, there were many people that worked on this. As a matter of fact, if you look in your material, you'll see all of the individuals that worked on it. A lot of them were MDs, medical doctors. There were a couple of pharmacists, along with a couple of NDs as well. And they came up with a great plan to put in place a drug formulary. They also made a recommendation to take the MD, physician, surgeon, oversight out of there, so that the NDs would be able to independently prescribe Legend and some of those drugs that were in here. For some reason, there was nothing ever became of that. So in 2000 and I believe 15, in January 2014, the subcommittee at that time restated their recommendation, and that they were in agreement with that first recommendation that was given back in 2007. It was also restated again in 2015 when SB 538 was going through. Since then, the formulary subcommittee had decided that instead of an inclusionary formulary, which changes so frequently, and it would be just burdensome on the staff to have to go back into those regulations and change every time something changed in the drug market, they decided to do an exclusionary, which would be a lot easier on staff to maintain in our regulations. And at this point, it's time for that exclusionary drug formulary to be created, and so that we can take that on in our regulations and try to get legislation changed.
So are we in a position where we have already approved the subcommittee's report, the last one? Do we have to refresh this report and go for another approval?
So what we would need to do at this point is refresh the report with that exclusionary formulary. That was never done.
It's actually, in this report, it says they recommend an exclusionary formulary from
Yeah,
2014. It's in there.
We did approve that as part of our report.
But the 2014, they did not actually do an exclusionary formulary. They were in agreement to the formulary that was provided back in 2007
I see.
with those items that were on there. However, they wanted to go back in and make sure that it was done in a way that was exclusionary, so that it could be maintained a little bit easier in our code of regulations.
Okay.
So that's kind of where you guys are. You would need to take those items that were first reported back in 2007, and then change it around so that it's exclusionary
Sure.
instead of inclusionary.
All right, Dr. Hurd, can you hear me okay?
Yes, just fine.
Michael, are you willing to continue to serve on this subcommittee?
Absolutely.
All right, excellent. And as I mentioned, I'll get in touch with Dr. Koshland and see that he'd be willing. And then now, with the three of them on the subcommittee, that would require notice in terms of a meeting, is that right?
That is
Okay.
correct.
All right, and then,
So would the subcommittee be the people who are creating that exclusionary?
it would just be, the subcommittee would be you, Dr. Thompson, Dr. Hurd, and Dr. Koshland, if
Okay.
he's willing to continue to serve, which I would be willing to bet he is.
Seems likely.
And I don't think you would have that much business to take care of other than to develop, most current language and submit something back to the I would charge you to have this meeting sometime in the next 4 months so that we can, next time that we convene, we can act on your recommendation as the entire Naturopathic Medical Committee.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem highly complicated, and I think
No.
I understand what we need to do.
Not complicated, just want to make sure that we perform technically.
Right, so
legal.
we just need to come up with a list that's exclusionary rather than inclusionary, and basically follows these same guidelines.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
All right.
Since there's only 2 committee members on that,
There are 3 because, I mean, it's a subcommittee made of 3, even though there are only 2 board.
yeah, only 2 people on the
Members.
committee.
Well, that's a good question. The third member of this subcommittee doesn't serve on the board, on the committee here. He's a member of the public.
Is the question is whether or not would be noticed under Bagley?
Yeah, but that still requires notice.
It still would, yes. It's the number 3 that requires the notice.
Okay,
And all of our subcommittees for the drug formulary in the past have all been
noticed meetings. Okay. I think it's possible to do. I think it'll only take 1 meeting, so.
There's a little typo, I don't know if you care, on the second page of the 2014 recommendation in the last paragraph that says it is be included and maintained in California Code of Regulations rather than in stature, and it should say statute. Thank you.
Although we all have good posture this morning. Let's see. Okay, so we've taken care of number 3. I guess we should move into number 4, discussion and possible action of the current drug formulary draft. Is there action that we can take? We were just on that. We're not taking any action at the moment. We're waiting for the latest draft. Very good. I would like to skip up in light of, I am a California taxpayer. I'd like to get my dollar's worth for our employees. So we're going to go to our budget update number 8. And we have the DCA Budget Office here today to speak with us.
Good morning, committee members. My name is Mark Ito. I am your DCA budget analyst. I've been asked to come present a budget report this morning for you guys. I presented back in February, so some of the information that I will present today may sound familiar to you. Feel free to ask questions as they arise, and I'll also take questions at the end. All programs under DCA participate in incremental budgeting, which means that the starting point...
Dr. Theon, can you get closer to a mic?
Absolutely. All programs under DCA participate in incremental budgeting, which means that the starting point of each year's budget is the Budget Act, which was approved by the governor, and from there, incremental changes are made via budget letters, executive orders, et cetera. A good kind of example of that is within the last few weeks, we had to make an incremental change to your budget based on the contract ratifications and the bonuses that had to go in, so we had to adjust your budgets accordingly. And the end result is your current year appropriation, which is $320,000. Now, in your packet, you have a few documents. There's 2 fund conditions. They look like this. There's 2 fund conditions in here. Now, these documents show your prior year actual data.
Page 47, 48, 49.
Awesome, thank you. So these documents show your prior year actual data, which is fiscal year 15-16, as well as the current year authorized, which is fiscal year 16-17, and there are formula-driven calculations for the out years. Now, the first row, first section in the fund condition is the beginning balance. So this is the amount of cash you have in your fund at the beginning of each fiscal year. And then you have your revenue section, which is your actual revenue for 15-16, and for 16-17 and on, it's projected revenue that was provided by the committee during the budget building process. And then you have your expenditure section in 15-16. Once again, that is your actual data. 16-17 and 17-18 is the budget building process where we determined your expenditures, and in 18-19, that is formula-driven calculations based on your budget for the previous years. And then the end is your fund balance. That is the amount of cash at the end of each fiscal year. And an easy way to kind of look at this is that is the beginning balance plus the revenue minus the expenditures, and then you'll get your fund balance. And then at the very bottom is the Munson Reserve, and kind of the easy way to look at the Munson Reserve is if your committee didn't receive any more revenue, that is the amount of months that your program could remain solvent with its current revenue and expenditures. So the first fund condition I have here is the 17-18 Governor's Budget Fund condition. Now this fund condition shows the projected revenue that the committee submitted to the budget office during the budget building process, and the expenditures were, as I mentioned earlier, during the budget building process, we used incremental budgeting, and that's what we came up with for the expenditure section there. And then as you can see, at the end of 18-19, you'll have 0.1 months in reserve based on this governor's budget fund condition. But just be aware that this fund condition kind of shows what your fund would look like if you brought in exactly how much you projected and you spent your entire appropriation.
Can you
Yes.
just help me understand the difference between the two pages that look almost identical?
Yeah, the difference is in for fiscal year 16-17 in the second fund condition, that is your projected revenue and expenditures through March of this year. So this isn't what we projected back during the budget building process. In 16-17, this is your projected revenue expenditures for what you've spent this year.
So the last one is an updated projection?
Yes, it is, absolutely. So with that said, I'll move on to the second fund condition. Like I said, the second fund condition shows projected revenue and expenditures for this year based on what you spent through March. Now, your revenue is significantly higher than what was projected during the budget building process. You've actually brought in $150,000 more than what was projected during the budget building process. And that, I believe, I can let Becky kind of expand on it, but I believe that's...
Sorry, can you just tell me where you are now? Because I think we're going between these pages.
I'm on page 48 now, the second fund condition, the one that's titled 17-18 Governor's Budget.
This was the original projection?
No, the original projection is on the 17-18 Governor's Budget Fund condition, which was the first one, page 47, I think it was? 49, I'm sorry.
We're on page 49.
49.
Under the title, it says 17-18 Governor's
Budget. Yeah, that is the original fund condition, and those are the numbers that are displayed in the governor's budget.
Oh, that's weird.
So where's our actual 250? I see actual 2015-16.
Yeah, and then
The
for
actual after.
16-17, it's a projection, since we're still in the middle of 16-17, so it's just a projection at this point. So the 17-18 governor's budget with FMO9 projections,
Okay.
the one that's,
So 48 has the governor's budget prior year adjustment at 549, and then the second one is 400. Which one is more current?
the one that is more current is the one that has 549.
Okay.
Because the revenue is a projection, and that, so if you look at the revenue section there, I'm projecting that you'll bring in $150,000 more than the other fund condition.
Okay, which is making us have more months in reserve.
Absolutely, yeah, and I updated the expenditure section as well in there. So the second fund condition is more of a kind of a more accurate projection of your fund at this time. I kept the 17-18 and 18-19 revenue the same on the second fund condition, because that is a conservative estimate based on conversations I had with Becky, and I can let Becky kind of expand on why it's a conservative estimate.
Sure, thanks, Laura.
Yeah.
Mark is the only one that's allowed to call me Becky too, by the way.
Oh, I apologize.
Okay. So when we were coming up with the projections on our revenue, what we normally do is we take a look at the trend on what's been going on in years past. And we do have, every other year, we seem to have an influx of revenue. And it's just because of the way our renewals are kind of based. We noticed, however, leading up to the SB 538 bill, that there were a lot of folks that after being licensed, they kind of stayed put to see what was going to happen with that 538 bill. Because of the increase in the scope, and it would kind of set that parity with other states that are, have that full scope for naturopathic medicine, we noticed a lot of folks staying put. Because SB 538 did not pass, we think that there may be a chance that those people will go ahead and let their license lapse and go on to Arizona, Oregon, wherever, to have that more full scope practice. So with that being said, we're probably not going to continue on that trend that we've seen for the last 2 to 3 years with our revenue for renewals. We hope that this is not the case, but it more than likely will be. So with that being said, we do have to take a look at our revenue right now, what's coming in, what we're paying out for pro rata for other of our state agencies and the services that DCA provides for us administratively. Also, we're looking at our enforcement caseload and how much that is coming in.
Could you say really quick, remind us what pro rata is?
So pro rata is a portion that we pay to DCA and other state agencies. DGS is one of them that does our facility stuff. So it's just and I'm not sure how they come up with it, and I think Mark can speak a little bit more to that. But it has increased. The cost of business has went up a little bit, and unfortunately, that's nothing that we can not pay. So we have to do that, and we are very conservative in what we spend our money on. So I'll go ahead and let Mark take that back, but that's kind of what we're looking at in the trends right now.
Okay, pro rata is on a high level is the cost of doing business with the department. Now, it's allocated on a ratio of predominantly either based on positions or workload when we can determine the workload. Yeah. So for the fund conditions, as Rebecca mentioned, there is an upward trend in 16-17, but it is not anticipated that the revenue is going to continue in that upward projection. However, when we build the budget for next year, we always reassess the revenue, so the committee will have another chance to send in their projected revenue, which we can include in next year's fund condition.
Can you remind us of our target for months in reserve? What's ideal?
I believe is it 24 months?
No,
12?
we consider anything above 3 to be healthy, and anything less than 24. So somewhere in that range. And if you get closer to that 3, we'll be having the budget office and the committee will be having conversations to ensure that you don't become insolvent.
Okay.
And I have a couple questions about the previous report on what we've spent so far. I just kind of scanned it and I noticed that facilities operations was at 150% of what we had budgeted for 2016-17 through March 31st.
Yeah, DCA, at DCA with our projections and our expenditures, we do bottom line budgeting. So at the end of the day, what matters is that you don't spend more than your entire appropriation. I can work with Rebecca to kind of move around dollars in the budgeted line items.
Operations part of the pro rata thing, or what? Do you know what that was?
So what you're talking about right now is our rent costs, facility operations. That's just what we pay in rent to the Osteopathic Medical Board for.
You can't change that. There's no control over that.
As a matter of fact, that will be going up.
Okay, and then, obviously the enforcement was due to the backlog that we had because of the breeze system thing, right? Okay, yes, thank you.
Yep.
You're welcome.
So if you have any questions, I'll take questions at this point.
I imagine we're going to be talking about what we're going to do about this.
Yes, we are.
Awesome, thank you.
Well, let's talk about what we're going to do about this.
Oh, okay.
Well, then I guess we can go ahead and call on Yafana. Yafana and I have been talking about this every once in a while, that there is going to come a time when we will have to increase fees. We don't want to, however, with the cost of doing business and with making sure that we have funds to do our business and carry out our duties, we need to make sure that we are going to stay solvent for as long as possible. So with that being said, Many of you may have been reading the SB 672. What are we?
796.
796. Thank you.
796.
And with that, you would notice that they are wanting to put a cap on our fees right now, and it is at the current fee level. So it doesn't give us any room to do those fee increases. So right now, I think we need to start talking about having them maybe take that off, or at least raise it before it goes any further. So I'll go ahead and send it over.
You want me to do all of legislation, starting with the Sunset Bill then?
You can
Or-
start with the sunset bill, and then if they want to go into ledge, we can.
Well, I think, let's finish this budget topic if we can.
Sure, so,
And then, yeah, we can segue, but let's complete this tab.
Okay, so as far as getting amendments in, you can do this anytime through the legislative process, up to third reading on the floor in the second house. So you have a lot of time to voice your concerns to the committees, to the author, and to appropriations to try to get amendments in there. The problem is you don't want to have to sponsor a bill in a couple years in order to raise the statutory limit so that you can then do regs. So this is a good time to do it now if the author is willing to add that.
All right.
So
Are there time constraints in terms of, I know you say we have lots of time, but does it then have to go back and forth if we add amendments, or does that not make a difference?
well, the bill is about to be out of the first house. It's being heard in appropriations today. It'll go to suspense. And I'll explain what that means if you guys want me to. But then it'll go to third reading on the floor and then to the second house. So if it's amended in the second house in the assembly, it'll go back to the Senate for concurrence. But there most likely won't be a policy discussion or any of those kind of hearings.
May I ask, Fana, why would they put a cap on our fees?
Every other practice act has a cap.
Oh,
You just happen to not have one built into your practice act, so when they were reviewing the practice act, they noticed it and put it in as what the fees currently are, not taking into consideration your possible fund condition.
okay.
Do you know if, I mean, one of the reasons that we're having to do this is because we are few, and if we had a huge influx of people becoming licensed in the state, our budget would increase. Do fees ever go back down once you raise them?
Yes, if you reach the 24 months, then you are required by the Business and Professions Code to lower them.
Great.
Rebecca, do you have an idea of what kind of number we're looking at as far as writing in there?
so at this time, in order for us to actually figure out where we would need to be with those fees, we would actually have to start doing an audit on our fees. That's gonna cost the committee about $40,000 to do. So we need to spend money to let them know that we don't have the money and that we need to do this increase. So what we're gonna try to do is work with the budget office to try to figure that out as closely as we can in hopes that we don't have to do that audit. But there may come a time when we actually have to do
I mean,
that.
according to this report that Mark just gave us, things are pretty clear.
It is pretty
We
clear.
still have to spend another $30,000 to make it more clear.
The legislature wants to see a fee audit, unfortunately. So that's normally what's
It's
done.
not like we have 800,000 licensees. I mean, we could do this in a day on an Excel sheet.
We could.
Let me ask you.
Can I
Go
ask a
ahead.
question? Does the fee cap include additional fees like we had discussed about things for, naming, fictitious name statements and things like that?
So, no, and it doesn't, and that's why, if we are looking to create other fees in other places, we should look at doing that first before we start going and upping and increasing application fees or renewal fees or that type of thing.
And that wouldn't require the same amount of, it wouldn't require an audit to do that, I presume, to add those fees.
I've never been through this process, we've never been in this type of situation where we need to, but from my understanding, from information that I've gotten from the legislature and information that I've gotten from budgets, that is normally what is done. As a matter of fact, when we were at one of the hearings not too long ago, the legislature actually asked Dr. Field and I if we've had a fee audit done yet, so.
And what about, and do those kinds of fees need to be put into the legislation?
No, in
Or
order
just
for
the
you to
cap?
raise fees, the cap would need to be raised, and then the fees would be raised through the regulatory process.
But the other fees that we're talking about, if we're gonna add additional fees.
That
to
would
the
have to be done
process,
through legislation.
It does also, so that also needs to be put into, it could be put into sunset or,
The committee has said that with the sunset bills, they don't want to touch scope and they don't want to add new license types, which is what that would kind of be. So you would have to sponsor legislation, your own, to get the
we're gonna
fictitious
stop
name
this
part.
No matter which way however we do it, we have
What
to.
we have to do is amend the current bill to increase the cap, so we have leeway to do that in the future.
If the author is willing, yes.
But that just covers licensing fees, it doesn't cover any
Right.
kind of additional fees that we would potentially
No, you would
look
need,
to have as separate entities, basically.
you would need the legislature to authorize
Yeah,
that
okay.
through an amendment to your
Do
act.
you have a recommendation for the cap proposed?
At this time, I don't, like I said, we would have to work with budgets, and budget is already well aware of this, so this is something that we're already looking at. We will be looking at what we're currently at, kind of where we are in the imbalance every year, what we're paying out more than what we're bringing in. And with that, we'll have to kind of go backwards and figure out exactly where we need to be with that increase. We also want to take into consideration that if we do move forward with the fictitious name program, that's going to be bringing in about $30,000 a year for us. That may be what we need to offset that imbalance right now. And if that's the case, then we don't have to raise fees. So there's these things that they're all in play that we need to kind of look at before we just go and raise somebody's fee. Licensing fees with what they're at right now, I would hate to raise them at this point, but if we have to, that's where we have to go. But I think there's some other things that we can do right now before we actually go and raise those
So our
fees.
current cap is 800?
But we're at 800.
Well, there is no cap.
There is.
There's no
It will be.
current cap, but it will be 800, yes.
Right, so let me ask you this, Fauna, Ryan, since there isn't a cap at the moment,
I see where you're
you
going.
know where we're going with this. Can we propose can we put it in a regulatory package and before the legislature acts, and then we would if we did that, number one, would we set a precedent, or would we have a time preference so that our reg package would supersede what the ledge does, or does the ledge supersede what we do? And could we get it done fast enough that we could beat the ledge?
Well, it sounds like you have two questions. One, which supersedes which, legislation or statute supersedes regulations?
Okay.
And the regulatory process takes about 18 months, so you wouldn't have it done in time if you submitted it today.
But could we also just pick an arbitrary number, not quite arbitrary, but can we increase the limit in the statute just based on the fact that we know we're gonna need to do it without going through the audit process
if the
first?
author-
Just for concerns.
That's going to be up to the author. So,
Okay.
that's something Dr. Field and Rebecca, maybe you should try to make your case to the author why that's necessary. But ultimately, it's going to be up to Senator Hill.
I think if we show him the budget shortfall projected and say, give us a couple extra $100 wiggle room.
And these fees are not, they're not an encumbrance on the taxpayer or the state, they're an encumbrance on the licensees.
Right.
So-
They don't impact the general fund at all.
Right, okay.
But,
It's worth a try, otherwise we have to still keep working on it and it's just gonna take longer.
yeah, I mean, if Senator Hill doesn't want to raise the caps in this bill, then you would sponsor legislation. I mean,
I'm curious, with other programs, if their cap was passed in 1954, is there some kind of an inflationary adjustment, or?
that's actually part of the justification. I had a program that raised fees through statute a couple years ago, and that was a big part of their justification was they hadn't raised fees since the 80s. So, yeah.
We haven't raised fees since our existence day one. Of course, it's not the 80s, but, all right.
Yufana, is there a normal percentage, and maybe Mark knows this too, is there a normal percentage that other programs go up? 10% or 5% or?
The trend the past couple of years has been 25, to raise the cap 25, and then the actual increase is substantially lower.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
So let me ask you along those lines, if you could document that for me and for Rebecca, because evidently we're going to have a meeting with the author in the very near future. And if we could present that kind of data, we could ask for a cap of $1,000, which would give us that 25%. That's the $200 increase over the $800 that we have now, with the understanding that we're not going to go there right away, that we go, a few points as needed. So I guess what I'm asking you in a sort of maybe not, well, I can ask you now. Is that a reasonable number to ask if we're going to ask the author to?
Well, that's what other programs have been asking the past couple of years, and there have been a number of programs that have raised their fees in the past 3 years, so I can definitely get data for you.
That'd be great. Thank you so much. And this probably the sooner the better, right, Rebecca? Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Mark, or Mark, do you have any other information for us?
No, I don't.
And do we
I
have
have
any
a quick
action?
question. This is Dr. Theon. Rebecca, do the other programs normally have a cap with that additional raise on it?
So, Theon, thank you for the question. Yes, all of the other programs have caps within their statute. We did not this whole time when the act was first created. I believe it was probably an oversight. So when they were reviewing this during this legislative sunset session, they noticed that there weren't any, and they went ahead and put it, but they put it at our current fee. So it doesn't give us any wiggle room to do those increases. But yes, to answer your question, all of the other programs do have a cap.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, well, if we're finished with that tab, let us back to the agenda here. Thank you.
And I just wanted to offer, I plan to be here for the whole meeting, so you don't have to rearrange the agenda because I'm here.
Okay.
I plan to be here anyway, so.
Now, do we need to have Mark here to talk about the proposed fictitious name permit program?
I don't think so. This is one of those things where, we've already, in a previous meeting, you guys have already approved this language. This was the language that to be placed in our sunset bill. Unfortunately, because they weren't taking any new license types or that type of thing, they opted not to carry this in there. So this is something that we will have to go and find an author to take on, but this is something that you guys can talk about what the fees are. I can tell you that with the Osteopathic Medical Board, it's a $100 application fee, and then it's a $50 renewal fee every year. If they pay late, there's a $25 late fee added on to that. And that is a yearly permit, and so that is pretty similar, I believe, to what the medical boards is as well. I haven't looked at the medical boards in quite some time. They may have lowered or reduced their fees, and they may have increased it.
Okay.
But I know that in the past, that's what Osteo has.
All right, well, what I wanted to do is just figure out if we're concluded with tab A, the budget discussion.
Yes.
And then we could excuse Mark, and he can go on to bigger and better things.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you very
Yep.
much, Mark, for your time this morning and your attention to these details. You, Fauna, are in that chair for the rest of the day. No. So, actually, Fauna, unless she has to testify now, if you want to get comfortable and sit somewhere else, whatever you want to do.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
Well, since you've already told us what's up here with tab 9, let's just keep going on to tab 9, the establishment of proposed
Oh,
fee.
get comfortable there. I thought.
No, anywhere, but if this is in your wheelhouse, Fauna, let's keep it here.
Okay.
Tab 9.
Sure, so the fictitious name permits. Like I said, the information that is in your meeting materials is the language that everybody has approved in the past meeting.
Page 51.
Page 51 and 52. This would be the language in statute. You guys could then go on to create regulations after this is in place. You can also do, since there's no fee in statute with this, I'm not sure, and we'd have to ask Fauna on this, but is this something that we would include the fee in statute, or is this something that we could carry in regs?
No, you would have to add the authority to charge the fee in statute.
So it is something that when we go and search for an author to take this is probably something that we should already have in our mind is what we're wanting to ask for the fees for the application fee and then for the renewal fee of the permit.
So this language you have on page 51, this proposed language, does this include the request for authority to charge the fee?
No, it does not have that in there.
Well, we better get it in there. Now, did you lift this from the osteo board?
Yep.
Very good. So this is a tried and true.
It is, and I was the coordinator for the Osteopathic Medical Board for fictitious names for 8 years, so I can tell you that it works. We've got numerous violations off of it. We found nurses that were kind of trying to circumvent the Medical Practice Act, and then also the Corporate Practice of Medicine. So this is definitely a way to keep track of our naturopathic doctors that are out there that have or are working under a DBA, and so that this would allow us another tool to use in our enforcement just to make sure that everybody is doing what they're supposed to.
And just to fill that in a little bit more, I'm assuming this is addressing a potential danger to the public, and can you say a little bit more about what happens?
Sure. So what normally happens is somebody will come up, and probably not nurses in this respect because you guys really can't give nurses any orders right now, but there are others that will have a naturopathic practice and work with other naturopathic practitioners, or it could be somebody that is an acupuncturist or a chiropractor and be working with a naturopathic practitioner. And what will happen is, in order to either charge more for their services or whatever, what they'll end up doing is they will get a naturopathic doctor as the director, and that person will be there maybe once or twice and never step foot in there, and the chiropractor is the one that's running the show. So if that's the case, then we need to know that. We need to know if there's a 50-50 ownership of a practice, so that we know if something happens there, who's at fault or who we need to talk to. If a patient calls us and says, there's been this whatever going on at, Sunrise Naturopathic Clinic, then we can look it up and say, okay, let's call, Dr. John Doe and see what's going on. Sometimes John Doe is not even there, and so that's what we want to make sure that it's.
And I'm assuming there's no interface between the Secretary of State, where we have to file every year a statement of information that has that exact same information and pay.
So the Secretary of State does do this, but they do not make sure that, we found this in the MD and DO a lot. So what'll happen is an MD will want the name ABC Med Clinic, and then a DO will want ABC Med Practice. Those names are so similar, but yet the Secretary of State will still go ahead and issue them both. So you have an MD and you've got a DO that have almost the identical name, practicing in two different locations, and somebody says, well, Dr. So-and-so hurt me at this clinic, and you look it up and, well, no, it's not an MD, it's the DO, and let's call them and find out. So what we started doing when I was with the osteopathic guys and gals is we would actually check with the MD board to make sure that there wasn't something that was already similar. Plus, our database let us check that as well, so that we could say, okay, you know what, nope, that name's not available because there's already something too similar, and it creates a confusion to the public. So with that being said, it would also stop that from happening, because I'm gonna tell you that there's currently some problems with some of the names that's in naturopathic.
Right.
Also, it's only if you're incorporated that you register with the State Secretary of State. If you're just a solo
is
practitioner,
correct.
but you have a DBA,
Yep.
it's only with your county that you register,
That is absolutely correct.
if you register at all.
Another thing that's been pointed out on this subject before is that a patient may go to the Radiant Health Clinic, experience harm or perceive harm, file a complaint, but they don't even remember the name of the doctor they saw, because maybe the clinic is more or less of a mill or something.
Correct.
Or maybe they weren't even treated by a doctor, but like you said, the Radiant Health Clinic owned by a licensee of the Naturopathic Medical Committee. And we wouldn't have a way to go after that clinic to protect the public unless we had that
Right.
clinic. I mean, after a $10,000 investigation, maybe we'd find out something, but
Sure.
better to have it up front. So
Right.
what kind of action do we need to take right now in order to move this forward?
So, well, if you guys are still okay with the language, the proposed language, then at this point you can decide if you want to follow what the osteopathic folks are doing with their license, or I'm sorry, with their permit fees. If you feel that $100 is too much for an application fee, definitely feel free to discuss it and bring it down some. I feel that anywhere from $75 to $100 for an application fee is reasonable. And anywhere from, I would say, $40 to $50 as a renewal fee every year is reasonable as
I have
well.
a couple of questions,
Yeah, please.
conclusions. Since we're on the fees, and then I'll come back to the other question. So, as long as a person just hangs up a shingle and says, this is the practice of Dr. Smith, they don't have to do this.
That is correct. So if you use anything besides your name and comma ND, you would have to get a permit, whether it's a fictitious name permit, okay?
So it's just nice to know there's a non-charging option if
There
you want to
is.
go that way, but if you want, then that's an option. And then on number 3 in the second section of the proposed language, it says the name under which the applicant or applicants propose to practice is not deceptive, misleading, or confusing. How do we decide if it is or if it isn't?
So what we do is we currently, you have to make sure that it meets the criteria that you guys have currently in statute that says it has to have naturopathic or naturopathic doctor or some type of wording that shows that naturopathic designation.
But that's only in the corporate name, that's
That's it.
not necessarily in the name of the practice.
That's correct. So if they send in their corporate papers, then what we need to do is make sure that that's first and foremost being met. Then after that, we need to make sure that it doesn't say, sunshine.
Aesthetics.
Yes, it has to somehow not be misleading to the consumer. So if the consumer sees the sign, they're, oh, okay, that's a naturopathic doctor clinic. I know this. It's not, day spa or, nursing or anything like that. It has to show the consumers where they're going.
So we would be making regulations to be more specific about that?
Yes,
And then you would
definitely.
be using those to make a judgment call?
That is correct, yes.
Out of curiosity, oh, sorry.
That's okay. So would that mean that, again, in the fictitious names, we would be required to put naturopathic or naturopath, et cetera, or we're requiring our licensees to do that? Or that we just can't have them mislead in a way that they say that there's something different? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so does it have to say naturopathic, or does it just have to not say, nursing or
Well,
something?
if it is a corporation, it has to have naturopathic in there
Clearly,
somewhere
yeah.
in the designation of
Yeah.
that name.
That already exists.
It could also be, ND naturopaths, any.
But that's the
type of-
corporate name. But if a
Right.
corporation wants to
So-
open a clinic that's Radiant Health Clinic,
It still has to, Right, so the corporation name, so the corporate name and the DBA name are different.
Right.
There's a lot of times where the folks will use the DBA the same as the corporate name,
Right.
and that's fine. However, there's a lot of corporations, naturopathic corporations, medical corporations that have 2 and 3 different clinics that have 2 and 3 different DBAs. So that is correct. If it's the corporation name, it has to have that naturopathic designation. Now, it's definitely up to you whether you want that name style to be similar with DBAs as well. That is what you guys are.
Well, if we're gonna
going to
debate
be.
that right now, I would say
Yeah.
no. I
Yeah,
think
I agree.
that people ought to be able to just call themselves, you know, the A Street Clinic if they want. It doesn't have to say naturopathic on it.
Sure, so that,
And-
and that is something that
Sorry.
you guys could definitely.
Any other thoughts about that?
My only thought was integrated clinics, you know, as far as being misleading.
So if it's an integrative clinic and there are, let's say it's a partnership and we have an MD and an ND that are working together and they're both 50-50 partners in this, then absolutely we definitely have to take that into consideration. And that, you know, there are gonna be circumstances where that is the case. So with that being said, that is the reason that you guys, as the committee, would have to come up with the type of name styles that you would be okay with. So definitely if it's a integrative medicine, then integrative medicine is fine to use.
But we don't have to have that in statute, we just, as cases come up in front of us, we make that determination. Does this supersede the need or eliminate the need for people to then also register their DBA locally, or do you have to do both?
You still have to do
Okay.
both. This is strictly for
Our purposes.
our purposes.
I have another question. Like for instance, with my clinic, my wife and I are a sole proprietor together because we're married, so you can do that. Do we both need to apply then for the name, or is it per business?
So it's, well, are you guys, you're a sole proprietor, you know, I would have to look it up really quick to see exactly how the other programs are doing that, but usually it's one person could just say, hey, you know,
And you would say both doctors work under that name?
right, so what happens, only one person, only one of you would have to get that name. However, if both of you own the clinic, it would probably be in your best interest to have both of you being 50% owner on the information that you give to us.
So people with that kind of arrangement would then apply once, one fee?
It's just one fee, yes.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be each doctor,
Yeah, and
it's just one of you.
so it's
putting
basically
it
by
in.
business?
Yes, it's just one business name, so it's per application, and you list all of the owners on that one
Got it,
application,
got it.
yes.
Thank you.
What would it take to add the language that we need in this proposed language on page 51, 52? Can we author something right in the next 3 minutes? And then can the committee propose that we move on?
Sure, if you wanted to come up with your fees associated with this right now, go ahead and let me know what those are, and what I can do is when I get back to the office, we'll go ahead and just put another blurb in here about what the fee is, and
That's all that we need to make this complete, right, is the
Yep.
fee?
that's
The
it.
annual
And
fee
then
shall be,
at a later date, when we come back after we get an author and everything, if you guys want at that point, we can start with regulation verbiage,
Yeah.
what you guys want to see in the regulations.
So are we talking about
So-
adding this into the sunset bill?
no, they won't
No,
take it.
No.
Okay.
We already asked them and they
And if we put in a fee, that's statute, and we'd have to do another statute to raise it in the future?
Yes, so just make sure that you keep that in mind when you.
Can we put a range in the statute that would give us some flexibility to raise it or lower it?
I'll let you.
When you introduce a fee, it is possible to say the minimum shall be this and the
Not
maximum.
to exceed?
Right, so that you don't have to adopt regs to charge the fee. You
Okay.
can, it'll be effective when the bill is effective.
Yeah, so I
Hey,
might actually.
Rebecca, I have another question. This is Theon again.
Okay.
Does this
Theon?
override?
Theon, can you hold one moment, please?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I might propose, and of course we wanna hear what Theon had to say, maybe not to exceed $150 to give us a long-range flexibility. And then I'd like to propose we start on the really low end of it, like 75 or
For
even less.
application, you're talking about for application fee, not the annual fee.
Right.
Because there's an application fee and then there's an annual fee.
It'll be the two fees, so an application fee of $75 not to exceed $150.
I would even say renewal not to exceed 150, depending on if you think that's too crazy. I think, actually, that's kind of high, isn't it?
That's really high for an
What is the
application, for a
renewal?
renewal fee. So
50.
Over
I
here.
think we started it at 100 for application fee. It's never been raised, it's never been lowered. It's always been $100 application fee. It was a $50 renewal fee every year unless they were late, and then it's a $25 charge on top of that, so.
So we might want to cap renewal at 100 and
then-
application
then-
at 150 or something.
Yeah, exactly, that sounds great. Dr. Gordon, go ahead and ask your question.
I just wanted to know, is there an additional fee for the state to do a fictitious business name as if they're doing the business as an LLC or something like that, or does this supersede it?
No, this is separate from any local or state name permits or whatever that you would have to currently pay for.
There's a statement of information for corporations required every year, and it costs $25, and you have to file that with the Secretary of State every year.
Correct, yeah, okay. Okay, thank you.
As I understand it, this is just for us to be able to better track our licensees by knowing all the names that they're practicing under.
Exactly.
That is correct, yes.
I'd like to be able to move this forward so that you have the authority to act, and, or we can, get this into the legislature. So what will it take to have that paragraph H, or whatever it is that's gonna say, there are three fees. An application fee of a minimum of $75 not to exceed $150, a renewal fee of $50 not to exceed $100, and a late fee of $50.
I think the late
I
fee
would
is
say
25.
$25.
$25.
So I would, yeah.
Can you write, so, do we all, is that close enough for peeps?
Yeah.
I agree.
All right, and then, at this point, can I entertain a motion that we move this proposed language for fictitious name permits? Now, this means that we have to find an author and submit a bill then, right?
Right, next year. The intro deadline has passed, so
Right.
this would be next year. But, so you have 6 months to
Unless we
find an
find some
author.
super nice author and just throw it in with whatever they've got, right, Judy?
I mean,
Spot bill.
if you're introducing a fee type, that would be a hard sell to find an
Yeah.
author. If you do, that'd be,
Should let you know.
yeah,
that's right.
please.
For a fee, we'll let you know who's gonna play.
Yvonne always has the most bemused look on her face when you talk about legislation. It's very funny.
I know, it's fabulous.
I
Very
didn't even
optimistic,
realize
well,
it.
that's great.
Well, the chair would entertain a motion that we pursue this language with the legislature.
Do you have somebody to move it?
I so move.
Dr. Levy's moved.
Second?
A second.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Any public input? I already asked for public comment at the very beginning of the meeting, so we're good, right? Here for this issue.
I'm just wondering, if you're already gonna talk to Senator Hill about that piece of legislation, was there any way we could try and put it in there since it's already rolling?
Well, the problem is with our sunset, we've already asked
Oh,
for this.
because I got it, guys, because
They
they have license.
denied us because they don't want to have
Okay.
the only fee they want is the cap that everybody else has. That's the only fee-related issue they'll allow, so.
Right. So if we're ready, we'll go ahead and take a roll call vote on this. Okay, so this is going to be to continue approving the language. We're going to add fee language and find an author for next year to carry this bill out. Dr. David Phil.
Aye?
Okay, Dr. Tara Levy.
Aye.
Dr. Greta D'Amico.
Aye.
Dr. Michael Hurt.
Aye.
Dr. Theon Gordon.
Aye.
Dr. Gregory Weiswasser. Mr. Alexander Kim.
Aye.
And Dr. Dara Thompson.
Aye.
Perfect. All right, so it's 8:00.
And then regulatory-wise, what will we need to do with this next?
So after probably our next meeting, you guys may want to go ahead and put it on the agenda to start speaking about regulations. If you would like, I can bring you some regulations that are already in place with the Osteopathic Medical Board, maybe a couple other programs to see how they're doing it. And then from there, you guys can make a decision on how you would like to move forward with your regulation.
We have the authority, but we might as well
Yeah.
get geared up, right?
That's fine.
So I would request that be on the next agenda with examples so we can discuss it and just
Yeah.
have it done, barring any other big things we have to talk about.
Exactly. All right. How's the current audience feeling? Should we ready to carry on to another tab? Okay. Well, look at this. Let's see. We could do, no, we didn't do childbirth yet. Let's do the childbirth. And that'll be tab 5.
Page 26, 27.
All right, Rebecca, you want to spell this out for us?
So currently, we have in place, I'm sorry, I'm trying to still get to where we're supposed to be here. So currently in our statute, we have the ability to issue permits or licenses for childbirth attendants for naturopathic doctors. Currently, there has not been anybody that has used that pathway, but currently we have somebody that is applying that would like to apply for that as well, as she is currently a midwife in Arizona, and naturopathic doctor in Arizona. So we do not have in place a application process. And I believe when Breeze was created, there was nowhere on Breeze to track or to put this information either. So we're going to have to get the IT portion of this done as well. However, I believe that it has finally come time that we need to get a process in place for an application if somebody wants to do the midwifery as a naturopathic doctor. Currently on page 27 and 28, I believe 29, is your current statutes, and this is what all of the requirements that would need to be met in order for a licensee to have that designation as a midwife as well. So this is something that you guys as a committee would need to decide how to move forward and get regulations written for this. So I'm not sure if you want to do a subcommittee to do that, or?
I guess my question is, in terms of applying for the application to become a licensed naturopathic doctor, do we have regulations around that, or is that just something that you create administratively?
So no, there is, in our regulations, it has currently, and I'd have to take a look at what our regulations actually state.
Oh, for the application.
There are certain questions that we have to have on our application, and that is within regulations, and the statute's what gives us the authority to do so.
So we need to, the next step for childbirth attendance certificate would be to create the application. The application can't be created until we have the regulations, so we need the regulations.
We would need the regulations. Yeah.
And the regulations, do we need a subcommittee to formulate those? Or is that something that you and staff can do?
Staff can definitely do that and bring it back to you as a suggestion, and then at that point you guys can take a look at it and see if it's something that you guys are willing to adopt at that point. If you have any changes or amendments that you want made at that time, we can definitely do that. So if that's the way you want to do this, we can definitely go that way.
It seems to me that the process and all that, this is like legal technical stuff that may be beyond the scope of us as practicing doctors, but is totally within you guys' knowledge base. And then you have Ryan there, you can call up anytime.
So what I would only ask is that somebody be available so that if we do have questions that are technical in the medical sense, that we can rely on you guys for that.
Oh, I know,
because
the
that-
volunteer
yeah,
for this.
I can take that on. You got it.
I have a couple questions about the actual statute.
Sure.
I found it very confusing, the second section, where it says that they have to pass an exam and establish to the committee's satisfaction compliance with one of the following requirements. And then you've got A, 1, A, B, 2, A, B, C. Like, I cannot figure out what that means.
You know, this was something that was already in place when I got here, and I have also looked at this a couple of times and trying to wrap my head around exactly what the intent was when this happened. I think Dr. Field has a little bit of history on this, and who was it that actually put this in place? Because we
Well,
may be able to go back and
Yeah,
ask
this
what
would
the
be
intent-
Who's
Beth Pimentel, or Beth Watton, her previous name.
Who I have contact with.
Yeah, in fact, she
regularly,
texted me yesterday, so
Yeah.
uh,
Okay.
we could, talk to her and see what, but, part of it is, as Fauna will testify, the sausage-making process where they neglected to put a fee cap on us, and then they created the most convoluted thing in terms of this childbirth attendance, because, this is an area where the protection of the public safety is really crucial. Every expectant mother has an anticipation of 100% perfect birth, so,
Well,
that.
So there's-
Basically, the idea, from my understanding, because I was somewhat involved in this conversation when we went through this as well, is that the naturopathic midwifery education is acceptable to be licensed as a naturopathic childbirth, and the licensed midwife, and also if you go through a regular licensed midwife program, because in some states there are, and Judy, you may have recollection of this as well, I don't know, there are, when you're licensed as a midwife, there, at least at the time that this law was written, and it's changed since then, there are a lot of issues with, what's the word I'm looking for? When you can go from one state to the other. Reciprocity, yeah, and so the idea was that we would be able to have reciprocity to bring naturopathic midwives here who are already licensed in Washington and Oregon and places where they license naturopathic midwives, so we modeled the language on those states.
Well, what I'm thinking with this is that we might want to do a little cleanup bill just to reorganize this, make the language clearer. Also, on the second page, it says corroboration from the client, enable client, it should say patient.
Right, we're using midwife language, so that was the.
I see. And then there's also on the second page, section 3651.5, naturopathic doctor certified for the specialty practice of naturopathic childbirth attendant shall do both of the following. And then it lists like 5 things, including filing with the committee a written plan.
Well, it's A
So
and B,
it's
it's A and B.
Okay.
So B
And B
has to
includes
have
those
1,
two.
2, and 3.
So does that mean they have to file with a naturopathic medical committee for every single patient this plan, or just in general for their practice?
That would be something that you guys would have to,
Oh, I think this is pretty clear
clarify
that
in
it's just their
regulations,
practice.
Just in
It's
general,
not-
who they're working
yeah,
with
it's
and
not
where they would go.
Yeah, right.
Because sometimes emergency transfer, if, I don't know, we might want to clarify, does that mean they have a plan for doing it and they're just telling us they have a plan? Or, depending on the location and where they're actually performing the service, that, where they go is going to be different.
I think the details of the plan are, I think that we would have to determine what that
That's
exactly
part of the
means, but I would,
regulatory.
yeah.
Okay, well, just something to keep in mind, we may just want to clean it up, just a few little things to make it much more clear.
well,
And we can still work on regulation before or after that, either way.
sure, and I can always go to Fawn on this, but, regulation is for clarifying statute. So if there's nothing particularly wrong with the statute, and you guys just want to go more into clarifying it, that's what you do within regulation. So we would definitely want to look at this though, and make sure that there's nothing that is hindering your guys' ability to do.
There are some
midwifery.
things in there that are out of date, for sure. Like
Sure.
certain immunizations that are given
Okay.
that should be expanded, that now, midwives can give and things like that. There are definitely things in there that need to be updated.
Okay, well, so if that's the case, then I really, my suggestion would be to have a subcommittee on this that can work on those things, because that is something that would be outside the
Right.
scope of the staff.
And we could also do things like generally give currently recommended immunizations and then if we need to put in regulations,
Right.
that's gonna keep changing, we don't wanna pass that
Right, and so,
statute.
yeah,
Right.
using the verbiage
Right.
current or.
Well, so I'd be willing to form such a subcommittee, but it's not my area of expertise at all, so I would recuse myself from service there, but Dr. Levy, would you?
Yeah, I'd be happy to serve on that. I need to, do we have any thoughts on who else? in
Well,
the-
I don't know, maybe we should bring Beth Watton back in, or if she's too far gone to her credit, would you be interested in going through these details? Never seen
I'm
it.
reticent, I don't know much about it, it's not my area, it would be on top of a lot of other things, so I prefer not to.
We can have a subcommittee of one, right, Ryan?
I think you could, unless there's something in your procedure manual or something that would prohibit that. Other thing to be aware of, as long as you keep it under 3, it's not necessary to notice it.
Yeah, I'm willing if you just want another head to make sure it's clear and all of that, but as far as the knowledge, I don't have that.
Yeah, no, I would think it makes most sense to have someone who's practicing actively, either as a midwife or a OB/GYN.
Is Beth
Does
still
that-
practicing here?
Beth is not Beth is in Maryland.
She's in Maryland.
Yeah.
Does that, I'm sorry, does the person, she doesn't have to be a member of the committee, correct?
No, no.
Isn't
I
Jen,
have a couple ideas.
Yeah, I do too.
isn't Jen in the CNDA?
And I
She
don't mind
does.
cleaning up.
There are a few NB midwives in California that I would, I don't know if it makes sense for me to talk to them and say, would you be willing to serve on this committee?
Can we approve that committee before we meet next time, so that they can actually do the work before we meet next time? Or can we do it by any other way except a public
Well,
meeting?
why don't I just appoint Dr. Levy to the subcommittee, and then she
To
can
work
call,
with the
she
consultant.
can consult with whoever.
And I guess the concern would be that not to draw a body of 3 or more.
Right.
In the context of what your work would be doing, it's sort of, you are the designated person, and if you are having just one-on-one interactions, but not calling a body.
3 or 4 people, right, 3 more people.
Right, and if she calls 3 different people, that's not considered a serial meeting or anything like that?
Well, it would be if they're board members, or if they're committee members. So
Right,
you
Right.
but
have
they're
to-
not committee members,
Right, non-committee,
members of the public.
right,
Okay.
just to inform the decision-making process.
All right, I'm gonna form a subcommittee of 1, Dr. Levy, and then you're in charge.
One other thought regarding some other parts of the agenda is the whole military, and I'm not sure if it was in there, but I think there might be midwifery programs in the military, and there's been a lot of bills and things around, if you got trained there, that's actually transferable.
Yeah, right.
So we'll be covering more of that today, but just a thought to make sure that we include that, so we don't have to do it later.
Sure.
In whether it's regulation.
So
or
because
whatever.
it's naturopathic childbirth, I don't know,
Oh, I see.
it's not like we're licensing midwives.
Right, and currently,
That's true.
so currently what happens is the naturopathic colleges are the ones that vet that information.
Right.
So if somebody's coming out, let's say they did a nursing program while they were in the military and they came out, and all of the biosciences or whatever it is that are the same that a naturopathic doctor would take prior to getting licensed, it's up to the school and to the programs to be able to take those and give them credit for that. And from my understanding, every single one of the naturopathic colleges that are accredited currently do that. So
Yeah, we've
we are
satisfied
accredited
the
that, yes.
legislature's concern regarding this.
Right, and so
at the
what we
sunset.
currently do now is, and from moving forward, is we will be reaching out to the naturopathic colleges and to the accrediting agency and make sure that they are meeting this standard for us once a year, just so that we can report back to the legislature that we are making sure that we are addressing those military needs here.
Good point. Hang on, let's see what the result of this sidebar is. We okay? So have we come to a conclusion then on this tab? We have a subcommittee, we have a clear understanding of what we need to do.
And just to clarify, Dr. Fields, so the subcommittee would be presenting recommendations back to the full board for
Yeah,
consideration.
At our next meeting. We have to put a deadline on you, otherwise, yeah, you know.
And Tara, and I don't know if you guys want to do this, but if you find somebody that is willing to do consulting work with you, we can definitely see about getting a contract in place. If it's gonna be a lengthy amount of time, we can actually, do a contract and then we can make sure that they are compensated as well.
And to be clear, we don't need to have a Californian, like I'm thinking about someone from one of the schools who's running the program at one of the schools might be a useful,
They may be useful.
Consultant. yeah, but not necessarily in there's no midwifery program, I don't believe there's a midwifery program at Bastyr in San Diego. So it'd have to be someone outside of California, that's
Any
fine.
and all information.
And we can have a conversation offline.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Well, that takes care of tab 5. Look at this, we've done tab 1.
Few minutes break.
Sure. We're gonna, let me see, it's 11:25, let's meet back at 11:35, please. This is the bathroom stop. All right, we're gonna go back, we're gonna get called back to order. We are up to, let's do tab 6. Proposed regulatory language to implement Naturopathic Committee notice to consumer signage. So we're implementing Business Professions Code 138. Rebecca, you want to spell this out for us, please? Oh, wait, before you go, I wanted to, before you start, Dr. Hurt and Dr. Gordon and Mr. Kim, are there any members of the public at your sites?
With Dr. Hurt, no, there are no members here.
Make sure you're back.
Dr. Dion, no, there's no public member.
And Dr. Kim, are you still with us?
Alex, are you on the line?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes.
Very good. Any members of the public at your place?
No members of the public here at my office.
All right, thank you, 3 of you, for continuing to bear with us as we work through here.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
it's all you, Rebecca.
Sure. And so Business and Professions Code 138's been around for quite some time. And so we actually need to get some regulations done for the 138. And what this is just a notice to consumers, and it just basically is when your patient comes in to see you, they know who to contact if they have a complaint about you or your practice, or if they have questions about naturopathic medicine, they know they can contact the committee as your regulatory entity. So what I did was, I checked with some of the other programs, Osteopathic Medical Board, the Medical Board of California, and the Medical Board seemed to have everything kind of in place already. I know Osteopathic Medical Board, I believe, is currently taking this through regulation package right now. So if you go to page 34, this is the notice, I'm sorry, page 33, you'll notice this is the notice to consumers regulation. This is what we would have on our website if you guys were to approve this language. There would be a link to the CCR code, the actual regulation, and then a link to a printable notice to the consumers as a sample that you guys could use. And it just has to be in a certain font, a certain size font, to meet all of the requirements. So page 34, basically this is the same thing. It shows that the naturopathic doctors may provide this notice by one of 3 methods. Posting a sign in an area in their offices that all the patients can see when they come in at a 48-point type in Arial font. They could also include the notice in a written statement signed and dated by the patient or patient's representative and kept in the patient's file, stating that the patient understands that the naturopathic doctor is licensed and regulated by the committee. And also, they could include the notice in a statement on letterhead, discharge instructions, or other documents given to a patient or the patient's representative, where the notice is placed immediately above the signature line for the patient in at least a 14-point font.
I can tell you, recall ever having seen this at any doctor's office in any form.
And if they don't, if it's an MD right now, they'd be in violation because they already have it in their act. Not in their act, but they already have it in their regulations adopted. So they would get in trouble if they don't have this and it's a violation. So this is definitely something that's already, there's already authority in place with this, the statute of BPC 138. Currently, we're just putting regulations in ours to reflect that statute.
All right, this seems fairly cut and dried, and here's the exact language that the sign is right there.
Sure. Page 35 has the exact language that, if you guys are okay with it, we would go ahead and approve to start a regulation package, and we would go through the regulatory process of getting this in place. And yes, page 36 is the sample of what it would look like if you were to have this.
So this is just yet another protection for the
It's
public.
just a protection for the consumer. And this also assists when and if the part of our new legislation that's going through right now, 796, goes through stating that nobody that is not licensed by the committee is now allowed to use naturopathic
Right.
or naturopathic. This is just one more step that if a consumer goes in to a traditional naturopath's practice, if you will, and they don't see this, it's one more clue to them that, hey, this person may not really be licensed and probably shouldn't be seeing in that type of capacity. So it's just one more layer of consumer protection out there. So if you guys wanted to look over this or not had a chance.
I'm going to be Dr. D'Amico for a moment and say that on the sign, I think the D of naturopathic doctors should be capitalized.
Well, I can tell you that on the medical boards, it's not.
Well, then I guess
But
it
if
won't.
you
It's
would
not
like to
No,
capitalize it.
it's all right.
Title. But I do have a question on page 32.
Sure.
What is that? Because it's about name tags.
Okay, so this is further into the signage. So the medical board also has the regulations that go around 138 and 680, and I believe it's 680.5 if I'm not wrong, and I don't know if Yafana knows this now. I know if you can take a look at 680.5, I think it also has to do with name tags. So what that is when you go and see your patient, they should know at all times who their doctor is, who's treating them, and it should have a sign on your name tag. I know most of you probably have it on your coats or, no?
No.
Okay.
But there's
Well,
the
that's
third
something that
sentence
you
of
guys
this
can take a
section
look at.
has an opt-out, is if your license is displayed, then you don't have to wear a sign.
But we're not sending out wall-size licenses anymore.
Right. For some reason, Francine had that stopped when we went to the Breeze, the little wall
Certificate.
license.
You mean like
if you
a
will.
license
Not
number
the large,
720
it-
doesn't
We just
have,
have the wallet.
just has the wallet license?
Yeah, so I actually put it back in place in Breeze, so if you guys would like that to start going out with the pocket IDs, we can definitely do
Absolutely.
that, that is absolutely fine.
That-
Photocopying my little one and blowing it up and framing it.
That's okay too, but,
Let's make it all.
it's
But I'd
just,
rather have a
it
real
should
one.
never have been
Doesn't
taken
look
out
right.
of,
Yeah.
you got it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why she decided to do that, but anyway, we can definitely send those back out. I can get those put back in place. It may take a couple months for it to get put into production on Breeze side, but
We
it's
also
there.
don't have, for instance, PAs working with us, or nurse practitioners, and many of my patients, when they're seeing a medical doctor or a DO, they're not, they're seeing a PA.
Greg, could you mic up, please?
So we don't have PAs, nurse practitioners working under us, so the confusion, I think, is less of an issue in our offices typically, where when you go to a regular MD office, you're often seeing not the doctor. It's a-
So
but-
unfortunately, I hate to rain
but
on
the
the
scope is
parade,
so small.
but Business and Professions Code 680.5 states that any healthcare practitioner.
Yes, so since it says that, it also says that in 680. A question that I have, it says that the name tag in at least 18-point type has to say the name and the practitioner's license status. weird. Does that mean I'm currently actively licensed on your name tag?
I'm not sure, I would think that that would mean more like ND, MD, that kind of a designation.
And this is a regulation or a statute?
So this is in statute,
So-
I think the, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, so because there's a portion in here that says a healthcare practitioner in a practice or an office whose license is prominently displayed may opt not to wear the name tag. So as long as you have identified who you are to your patients when they come into your office, then you would not have to wear that name tag. However, if you do not have your license up to where the consumer can see it, then you would have to meet those criterias, is the way that I'm reading it.
How long will it take for us to be able to start sending the wall size certificates out again?
So what I would have to do is contact Bree's team and get it put back into production, so it would have to go, if they have resources, it would go into the next build, because it's already there. And what we could do is we could go to each licensee and manually print one out, but it would take my staff quite a long time to do so. Or we can have them build a patch, and what it would do is they would push it in and it would print every licensee who's currently on a current status. It would do one, it'd send it back to our office and my staff would send them out.
Yeah.
And then from that point forward, they would, when you renew, it would send both of them out. A person that gets a new license, it would send both of them out with the walls, the large wall certificate.
And can we include with that, if we mail them out to our licensees, something that's informing them of this? Because I don't know that our licensees know that they need to post this.
Licensees don't know currently, and that's why we're getting this.
Yeah,
put
so we
into
would
our-
send their license and then something saying you need to post this. you know,
Correct,
this
we can
day.
definitely add it to our information that we send out when they're first licensed as well.
Uh-huh.
And then I believe that notice is in the renewal packet as well.
Oh, okay.
I did not see
So-
it in the renewal
It,
packet.
because this is the first time that it's come into play for the naturopathic doctor. So once this is voted on for you guys, then we can have that regulation in our code, and we can also point them to that BPC.
Well, the chair would entertain a motion to.
Can I just,
Oh, I'm sorry, Tom.
yeah, so just to clarify, this is not currently in our code, but it is in a greater regulation which
General.
does pertain to us and apply to us. So we really should be doing this already, but we're just clarifying.
Correct, we should be
Okay.
doing this already.
Okay,
We're gonna be ahead of the osteo people. if We get this,
Well, no, they already have their regulation package going
Darn.
through.
okay. But,
Makes you comfortable, we were talking about this when I was on.
there you go.
Yeah, oh yeah, they've been
at it forever.
They've been at it for
Any further discussion? All right, the chair would entertain a motion that we direct staff to prepare regulatory language. There's the language here.
Should we just vote on the language then?
Yep, you guys would just vote on the language.
The language is here, this is all here.
Yeah, this would be to
Add to our reg package.
adopt this language.
To adopt this
and-
language and carry a reg
Reg
package.
All right. I'm waiting for my entertainment.
Motion to adopt the language?
Thank you. So Dr. Weiswasser has moved, second.
I'll second.
Dr. Levy seconds.
Okay, I'll do a roll call.
Are we
call.
sure about 18-point type on a name tag, just last? I mean, is that about what we have here?
I believe that's in the,
That's about it.
that's in statute.
And if it's in statute, you guys really can't change it. You can go
Okay.
larger if you'd like, but you can't go smaller.
Okay.
You have to-
Just display your license on the wall,
License in the law.
There you go. We'll send that out to you.
which I have already.
Okay, so we're going to,
Ms. Mitchell, before we do, I think we do want to make this open for public comment since we're going to be taking
Oh,
your vote.
I thought I took comment. Any other comment? Any comment from the, well, there are no members of the public at the other sides, so I think we're good.
all right, I'll go
Thank
ahead
you.
and do a roll call vote. Dr. David Phil,
Aye?
Dr. Tara Levy,
Aye.
Dr. Greta D'Amico,
Aye.
Dr. Michael Hurt,
Aye.
all right, Dr. Theon Gordon,
Aye.
Dr. Gregory Weiswasser,
Aye.
Mr. Alexander Kim,
Aye.
and Dr. Dara Thompson.
Aye.
Perfect, we got 8-0-0.
Along with developing the reg package, we also want to update the website with this information.
Yes.
In the new section, like, some of the new section is a couple years old, so we need to,
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're going to be going in and updating all of the regs, making sure that the links are correct, because sometimes with a couple of the programs, I've noticed that we go and push on that link and it's taking us to the old Ledge website. So, and I know that the web team has been trying to catch that as they've gone through there too. So we're gonna be working with the web team to make sure that everything's current and up to date.
Excellent. It looks like we are going to do tab 7, review and approval of committee meeting minutes.
I guess, sorry, on the last subject, is there some way maybe we could also just communicate this to the CNDA so that they can just really make
Sure.
it well-known to everybody quickly
Well, we don't even have a regulation yet.
once the reg passes?
Yeah, sure.
But what we can do is we can let them know that BPC
Coming up.
138
Yeah,
is
sure.
actually.
We're still.
If there is a statute,
There
we're
is
going to
statute.
clarify it and just put your license on the wall. That's the
Okay.
short
Yeah, all right.
way of applying. Logical, right? Okay. Tab 7, we have the committee meeting minutes from February 6th. Got a page number for us, Greta? Page 38 in our packet.
Dr. D'Amico, did you see any typos?
No, I didn't.
Good.
Wow.
I noticed a lot of abstentions.
Yeah, Miles Spar, I believe, opted out on a couple of them, he wasn't.
All of them. Everything we voted on. I just noticed that.
We did maintain a quorum though without.
We maintained a quorum without him.
Is that if he's not available for the vote, it goes as an abstention? Got it, okay.
Does anybody have any comments, corrections to the minutes?
I move we approve these minutes as written.
All right, the chair has entertained a motion from Dr. D'Amico that we approve the minutes. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Weiswasser. Any further discussion? Any comment from the public? No okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. David Field,
Aye.
Dr. Chair Levy,
Aye.
Dr. Greta D'Amico,
Aye.
Dr. Michael Hurt,
Aye.
Dr. Theon Gordon,
Aye.
thank you, Dr. Gregory Weiswasser,
Aye.
Mr. Alexander Kim,
Aye.
and Dr. Dara Thompson.
Aye.
Thank you very much. 8-0-0.
All right, by my tabulation, but Greta, be on top of me, we're down to tab 10, 11, and 12.
Which starts with the second packet of notes that we were sent, part 2,
Exactly.
legislative update.
Mm-hmm. So, it's just about noon. I'm all into continuing through, and we could take lunch in the middle. Fawn, how long will this take?
I'm actually only covering 11 bills. Rebecca narrowed it down to bills that would be more of interest to you.
Okay.
So what happened was when we first started getting the agenda in place, there was a list of bills that were kind of in different states of going through. And so what we did was, a couple of these bills have died, so they're just not going anywhere. And the ones that are actually either pertain to the committee or that pertain to the department that may have an effect on us somehow, I went ahead and asked Giovanna to go ahead and speak on those and give us a report on
Well, I guess we'll grind through and maybe we'll make it by lunch.
Okay.
them.
Okay, so I will go in order how the agenda is set up. So the first one is SB 746. That bill is, it's the same bill that was introduced last year to allow chiropractors to perform pre-participation physicals for student athletes. It also mentioned naturopaths. The chiropractic board pulled their sponsorship of this bill, so it is no longer moving forward. Okay, the next one on the agenda is SB 796. That's your sunset bill. Dr. Levy, Dr. Field, and Rebecca did a great job representing the committee at the joint hearing, so congratulations on getting through that. The bill was amended to, it does a bunch of things. It changes the composition of the committee from 9 governor's appointees to 7 governor's appointees, 1 Senate Rules appointee, 1 Assembly Rules appointee. It would require any naturopathic medicine program approved by the committee to evaluate the applicant's military education and grant course credit when it's warranted. So that will require Rebecca to check in with all the programs, make sure that they're doing this in order for the program to be approved by the committee. It would remove the existing requirement for applicants to submit an application in writing. That's just, because they can do that on Breeze now. Authorize the committee to conduct random audits to ensure continuing education requirements are met. So that's standard across all healing arts, and that will require regs down the line. It provides title protection for terms naturopath, naturopathic, anything that could be interpreted as implying that somebody is a doctor of naturopathic medicine. And it sets those statutory fee ceilings. So Dr. Field will be putting in a call to Senator Hill's office. This bill is also the vehicle to extend the respiratory care board. So they're in this with you. Their sunset part of it is clean. So the only substantive changes are addressing naturopath.
What was the purpose of changing the appointments to having one from the Senate and one?
That's standard. The rules committees want to have a say in who's appointed, and for I can't think of another example where it's all governor's appointees.
So this is just an outlier that they're
right,
fixing.
yeah.
We used to be, previously we were 3 by the Senate Pro Tem and 3 by the Assembly Speaker and 3 by the Governor, something like that. A long time ago. So we're sort of stepping. And these are if I'm not mistaken, it's the 2 public members that would then be appointed by the
Correct.
legislature.
Yes.
So.
And I have one other question just for my own educational process. Each section has vote, appropriation, fiscal committee, local program, and I can tell that means what kind of vote does it require? Will it have to be heard in appropriations?
Yes, it's actually being heard today.
Even though it says
at 10 o'clock.
It's for each section, right? Like each section is different depending. Like it says appropriations no
I think that
on
means,
reimbursing.
I think that means is it have an impact with appropriations.
So I'm sorry,
So
are you
are
talking
you-
about page 58?
Let's see. I'm on page 60 right now. It's kind of like these lines are interspersed throughout. So underneath, right before the people of the state of California do an act, there's a line, vote, appropriation, fiscal, local. Local's crossed out from no to yes.
I don't see that.
Oh, yeah, I see what she's talking about.
So the reason it says local program is because the amendments create a misdemeanor for the title protection. So local law enforcement, because it's a misdemeanor, local law enforcement could get involved in enforcing this,
So
or
it's
the
very
DA
something-
on behalf of the committee.
Right,
So
and
that's,
it's
Reason-
my question of what a local program is.
And then the reason
Yeah.
appropriation is no is because we're not asking for money. There isn't a fiscal impact on the general
But
fund.
it doesn't mean it doesn't have to be heard in appropriations.
right, it's being heard today.
I thought you could just skip it if it's not if it's not relevant, you could just skip it.
Wouldn't that be nice?
So all
You should tell
bills,
them it's a good idea. Thank you for
even
commenting.
bills that are special fund go through appropriations if there's a cost attached to it that's not absorbable. While this, sunset bills are generally a wash, because if the program is allowed to expire, there's no revenue, but there's also no cost. But appropriations wants to look at all the sunset bills, because if the committee and respiratory care board were to go away, there would be a revenue loss to the state of California. So, because the program's budgets are greater than $150,000, which is the threshold, it's an automatic trigger for bills to go to suspense. Although this bill's being heard today, it's gonna go to suspense. And so.
Explain that technical term for us, please.
So the suspense hearing is done usually the last week, right before the appropriations deadline, and that's to give these high dollar bills a chance to be reviewed on a deeper level by the committee to weigh their merits and versus their cost. So it's basically a formality for, excuse me?
It means it's being tabled until a later meeting, which gives people time to work.
Right, and so this will, although it's being heard today, it'll also be heard one more time in appropriations. At that time, they just go down a list of bills and say the vote. So they won't be discussing it at the second hearing. It's going to be introduced today, but we were told that Senator Hill was gonna waive presentation, so.
Does that mean that approps will be voting on it today or won't be voting on it?
No, they'll be voting on it probably the week of the 22nd. I believe there's 2 more weeks before
With a
the
bunch of
appropriations
other-
deadline.
With like 30 or 50 other bills.
Right, so
En
that's why
masse.
they just go down, they have a list of bills that they read, and they say the bill and the vote, and then move to the next one. They don't discuss it at all.
Okay.
And you mentioned, I can see, I think, 2 places where regulations would be needed.
Mhm.
What was the one that you mentioned? Because I see the one for the military thing.
The continuing education random audits.
Okay. And is that something, I guess we want it until it's passed because we want to, right?
Right.
Okay, so that
I
would
mean,
be
you
maybe on
can,
the agenda to discuss for our next meeting?
and that's, you can definitely work on the language ahead of time.
Oh, so
Just-
we could work on the language ahead of time?
Right.
Yeah, kind of
Because
what we've done already with other things.
this bill will be effective January 1st.
Okay.
So you can begin, you would have the authority to adopt regs as of January 1st of next year.
Is that something staff feels able to put together for those 2 subjects?
I'm sorry, for which subjects?
We adopt rules and regulations provide for methods of evaluating education, training, and experience obtained in the armed services, which is basically making sure the schools are doing it. And the other one you just said was?
Continuing education random audits.
Exactly, which we've already discussed.
So yes.
Okay, so we could approve that language next meeting, put it on the agenda, and then hopefully the package passes.
And we're ready to go.
And we're ready to go in like 2 years, it'll start happening. Right?
That's right.
Okay.
We're not retired.
So,
Right.
any more questions on the sunset bill? Okay. The next bill Rebecca asked me to cover is AB 77. And excuse me for reading on these, the majority of these bills are not assigned to me, so. This bill would require the Office of Administrative Law for each major regulation it approves to submit a copy to the legislature for review. This bill would also grant the legislature authority to override a regulation once it's passed. That's a new one. Well, I mean, I haven't heard of that being introduced before. So, this bill is on suspense, appropriation suspense already, so it'll be voted on by the Appropriations Committee during the last week. So, you know, this,
It's just a threat to the smooth functioning of our committee, but it isn't anything we have power over, so it is what it is, right?
there's been many bills to require more reporting to the legislature on regs because they're not involved in the regulatory process. So this is one of those, they just want want the chance to review and have more oversight over that process.
I mean, doesn't the legislature already have the authority to override anything that anybody does out in the world?
Right.
So,
This would just explicitly say that they can overturn your regulation. Right now, what they would do is pass a law that conflicts with your regulation, and then the statute would supersede,
right.
and then you would go through the regulatory process to repeal that or amend it to become compliant. This bill would allow them to actually.
So this would remove the necessity of going through changing the regulations.
Yes.
If these statutes were passed, which is a good thing.
It could be cost effective,
Sure.
yes.
Depends how they change it.
Well,
Yeah.
there's so many things we know that were in regulation when we had our original bill passed that we weren't aware of, that became very difficult to deal with. And so if there's kind of an overarching change that affects other regulations, that may probably, you need to still introduce new ones, but you don't have to get rid of the old ones or something like that.
You would still need to go through the repeal process. The office, this doesn't, that's kind of an outstanding question. It doesn't grant the Office of Administrative Law authority to just repeal it. This just grants the legislature the authority to override it.
So we would still have to go clean up the reg.
But this-
To be compliant.
Bottom line, like you said, this is one of those, it is what it is bills. We don't have any.
They already have that authority. This just explicitly states it. So I don't know if Rebecca was going to recommend.
I'm not recommending any stance on it, but if the committee would like to take a stance on it, that's definitely up to you. I just wanted to kind of watch what goes on with this, just because it will have some effect on us if there was ever, a need for them to do something on our regs. I just wanted you guys to be aware of it.
Okay, the next bill I'm going to cover is AB 208, Deferred Entry of Judgment Pretrial Diversion. Assemblymember Eggman proposed this a couple years ago through AB 1351, which was vetoed by the governor. She's introduced it again. This bill would revise existing Deferred Entry of Judgment program for controlled substance cases involving nonviolent defendants to a renamed pretrial diversion program. The defendant would not plead not guilty, and if the defendant does not meet the terms of the program, the court must terminate the program and reinstate criminal proceedings. Two programs, Pharmacy and BRN, have voiced concern over this because it would, if defendants aren't formally charged, if they can go through this diversion program instead of pleading guilty or being found guilty, that makes their investigations and their enforcement process more difficult. Definitely more complex, especially as far as evidence finding, because that would be done through the criminal proceedings. Now it would be on the programs to do that.
Yvonne, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there was a bill very similar to this that came out in the past.
Yeah, that was by Assemblymember Eggman as well, AB 1351. That's the one that was vetoed by the governor.
And this is one that we took an opposed stance on in the past. And just because as a regulatory board, when we're getting applicants or if we have a licensee and they have a substance abusing problem or something like this that happens and they're allowed to go through that deferred entry, we may not ever know about it. And that is a concern for us when they're seeing patients. So this is something that we were very concerned with the last time it came out in a bill. So I know that I would be concerned about this as somebody that has to look at these licensees coming in. So my suggestion would be to take an opposition on this bill, but it's definitely something that you guys can discuss.
Do you know what the intent of this?
To give nonviolent offenders basically a second chance.
This is for all nonviolent offenders. This isn't just.
This is for
Professionals.
drug. Yeah. Right.
So Barbara Cosmo,
Yeah, every program.
So, has anybody but pharmacy come out opposed to this, or is anyone else taking a stand on it?
BRN has issues with it. They haven't issued a letter, so I don't know if they took an official position, but they have voiced concerns.
I guess I don't quite understand that there's no way for us to track if the person does like a nolo contendere, oh no, it's not even that, it's not guilty, right?
Not guilty.
Not guilty, and so then they do the diversion program. If they successfully complete the diversion program, then they have a completely clean record and the charge is like never existed. So if there's a second, if the, that's I guess what Rebecca's saying is that if a licensee has multiple, how many times can you go through the diversion program?
The bill doesn't state that, I think. Let me see.
That is a little
Okay.
bit problematic.
Yeah.
And I suppose if we could compose a letter, I mean, my sense from hearing you guys, I would be in favor of, I'm in favor of second chances, but I'm not in favor of multiple chances, right? If there's a way that we can track the licensee.
Right, I mean, it's a very different situation if these are all first-time offenders rather than, multiple offenses.
I can give you an example. We'll have an applicant that comes on and, let's say 10 years ago when they were in college, they drank a little bit too much and got pulled over and got a wet and reckless or whatever. So at that point, when we're looking at their application, we'll take a look and see how long ago that occurred. Was it just a one-time thing? If it was, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and issue a license and say, look, you've had one charge of, wet and reckless or whatever the case may be. Any secondary, conviction of this type, we will take action against your license. So if this were to happen and that second time were to occur, but they went through this deferred entry of judgment, we may never know about the second time and we wouldn't be able to take action. And then you have somebody that it's not just once, it was twice, and then it becomes a third time, and we would have never known about that second time. So it is definitely concerning, and it would definitely change things. So this is something that we as staff are concerned
And
about.
as the law stands now, it's just all, if you're convicted, you're convicted.
It's there and we can see it, and any time a licensee, because you guys are all fingerprinted when you first apply, if you were to go out today, even if you've been licensed for 10 years, I'm going to get a response from DOJ saying, hey, this licensee just got conviction for this or just got charged with this, and then
But there's still room for us deciding about the license based on the nature of the crime, and so we can take details into account.
we wouldn't know about it.
No, currently.
No, currently.
Yes, absolutely.
So then on a case-by-case basis, there's the ability to give leeway or not, depending on history, because we have all the facts.
Correct.
And this bill, the language says within 5 years prior to the alleged commission of the charged offense, the defendant has not suffered a conviction for another offense involving substance abuse. So,
Right.
So that takes care of the recurrent.
well,
Well, no.
5 years.
Well, 5 years.
That's previous, but then if they do the diversion program, what happens when a year later they commit another,
There'd be no record of it.
there would be no record, that this would look like in other words, can they go through diversion again, and then a year later go through diversion again?
No, this says it has to be beyond 5 years of when they went through it before, or when they were convicted of another.
So it's
But there's
either
no-
or, convicted or going through the program.
Right, see, that's what, the conviction part, no one's ever convicted under this diversion program.
Right.
So it seems like there's this loophole, if you will, that they could just, every 6 months or every year,
Well,
get a wet and reckless by way of example, and no one would ever, let's not use that example because the DMV would be involved.
I would really lean toward an opposed position on this bill,
I'm
because I think that the way things are now works fine. I don't see that there's a big problem or, that there's currently a danger to the public that we need to fix. This actually potentially endangers the public more,
Yeah.
rather than currently where we have some discretion over really understanding the situation.
And I think the last time that we took a stance on this bill, it was an oppose unless it was amended to take out healing arts practitioners. And I believe that a lot of the other programs, the healing art programs, had the same stance on this. So this is just one of those things. And I understand that there are some professionals out there, whether it's a contractor, if they get something like this, a DUI, maybe going through diversion would be a great thing. They're not practicing on a person, although I would hate to go and see what that house looks like after being wasted. But this is definitely something that I think, if it wasn't for a healing arts profession, I would be willing to
So
do
can
an
we
amendment on this.
use that language that says we oppose unless amended?
Mhm.
That's always an option, yes.
Why don't, so the chair would entertain such a motion if we're feeling that way.
I so move.
So Dr. D'Amico has moved that we oppose unless amended. This is AB 208, Eggman.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a second?
Well, no, I just wanted to say, I don't know that I agree with the healing arts exemption. I mean, I know it's not under the scope of our board, but I'm as concerned about a contractor being not being altered while doing their job as, anyone else that's regulated by the DCA, honestly.
And that's definitely a decision.
Well, we can just say oppose unless amended. We're not specifying an amendment.
Okay.
Well, if we do, if it's an opposition, unless amended, we need to say what it is that we're actually opposing, if not amended. So we have
Correct.
to let them know what it is that is concerning us.
Those hearings, don't they usually, the CMA will come up to us and they'll say oppose unless amended. We don't know what their amendment is.
Right, you don't have to submit language, but you should state in your letter what they need to change in order for you to reverse your opposed position.
Okay, so, well, we don't even have a second yet on the motion, so I'm not quite sure what we're discussing. Should we take a second and then we can continue discussing? Or should we just continue to discuss? We could just take an opposed position.
I think that's what I was suggesting.
I'm comfortable with that, because I don't think we have the expertise to propose the amendment. I mean, we'd have to analyze.
Right, I don't want to analyze the bill.
I don't want to say, what are we going to amend and how are we going to,
Good job.
I know what our concern is. We could say in our letter that our concern is that there's no way to track multiple offenders, and we're concerned about the public safety of, being treated by licensees who may have an ongoing problem that's not adequate, whatever we say. But that's not suggesting amendment language, that's just explaining our opposition,
Which we don't even need to do.
which we don't even need to do. We can just say oppose.
I think we're a very small voice in a sea of voices that will come forward about this bill.
Yeah, what's your sense, Fawn? Are other programs chiming in on this bill yet?
Only pharmacy and BRN so far, according to the analyst who's assigned to this bill.
Well, what's the scuttlebutt?
There was a lot of discussion the first time this bill was introduced, so I expect that to occur again if this bill keeps moving forward. Right now, it's on the suspense file for appropriations, so if it makes it through, I expect more programs to come forward, but right now, it's only been those two.
Now, are we taking a political risk to stick our neck out with an opposition voice?
Assemblymember Eggman sits on the Assembly Appropriations Committee and the Business and Professions Committee.
There's a whole section in there about
We don't need to take
marijuana
that.
harvesting
You don't
and.
have
We
to
don't,
take
we
a
don't have to take any
stance.
kind of stand if we don't want to.
Right.
Okay.
I'd rather not make any enemies.
We can let sleeping dogs lie.
Yeah.
If the bill moves along further and we're concerned about it, then we could always pipe in later.
That's true also, right?
Well, your next meeting isn't scheduled until November?
September 11th.
Oh, it'll be through the legislature by then.
I think it's a real concern for this committee. If this passes, this really changes our ability to enforce our mandate and protect the public. So perhaps by saying unless health practitioners are removed, we are confining our comment to our purview. We may have personal opinions that cover a larger area, but really what we can weigh in about is our concern about our ability to protect the public in regard to health care by naturopathic doctors. And we've spoken our piece. I don't see that if we say unless amended, then we're still leaving the door open. We're not saying we're against you. We're not taking a really hard political stance. We're just voicing our concern.
I mean, you're looking at me like you want me to make a recommendation. I can't advise the committee because you guys are independent and the department takes its own position.
Yeah.
So I can't recommend that you take a certain position. I can just, present the facts.
When I look at you, it's only to confirm that my logic is sound, not that
Okay.
you agree with the opinion.
Okay. Yes, an OUA definitely leaves the door open for the committee to remove their opposition to a bill if your concerns are addressed.
We could also.
This is Dr. Dion. I have a question.
Yes, Dion.
Are there other regulations within the policies we've been putting forward that also address naturopathic doctors or naturopathic practitioners who may have some kind of substance abuse or something? Don't we have something else that might override this?
So currently, we have a regulation package being scheduled to go through, and you guys have all agreed on this within those disciplinary guidelines. So if there is somebody that is a substance abuser, there are certain triggers that have to have been met for us to see that person as a substance abuser. And basically anybody that gets charged and convicted with using either alcohol or another substance, that we use that trigger, that we kind of look at that person just right off the bat as a substance abuser. Just in the protection of the consumer, you just have to see that licensee as somebody that may abuse drugs or alcohol until they can prove otherwise. So that's already been established by the committee as a whole. So we do have guidelines that we can use to take a look at each case individually. So if it does surround drug or alcohol conviction, we can take a look at that and say, okay, look, this person's probably gonna have to go to a diversion program. It's kind of, we do take it on case by case, but with this being said, if this law or this bill was to become law, then if somebody did get a DUI and decided to go through this diversion program, we may not ever know about it. I mean, we might know of the charge, but when we contact the courts or try to do what we need to do for enforcement, we may not have all of the information because it may be deferred. So if that's the case, there could potentially be harm to a consumer if that licensee is still out there and practicing, and they indeed do have a problem with abusing drugs or alcohol. And I think that's my concern on this bill.
There's a section 1000 in here about growing marijuana for your own use. And I wonder with legalization in California if this is even relevant, because you wouldn't have a conviction based on this, I don't think, if it's already complies with that new law. It says if the narcotic drug was secured by a fictitious prescription, and is for the personal use of the defendant, was not sold or furnished to another. I understand fully.
So you would definitely need to comply with current law. So if they're lawfully able to cultivate and, be in possession of, use for medicinal purposes, then, I'm not sure that that would fall under something that's enforceable for the committee.
I might throw out another consideration for the committees, not taking a formal position, but just stating what the concerns are. To the extent that the bill does these things, we would be concerned for these reasons.
I like that. But we'd have to act quickly in terms of making our voice heard, because this bill's already moving into suspense and.
Right, and you're not gonna meet again until after it's already
Can
through.
we just write up something saying that we're concerned about the ability to track and fully understand a licensed healthcare or someone trying to get a license, what their history is and what risk they may pose to the public?
Sure.
We'd have to
Because we'd
generate
be hindered,
language
we'd
right
be
now.
hindered from being able to do that.
Well, is there a reason not to oppose unless amended and simplify that?
Because we don't know what our amendment would be.
No, you don't have to offer amendments, you can say what your concerns are.
Right.
So,
Yeah, we don't need to give specifics, but just, again, I think exempting either healthcare providers.
But the reason we make.
Sure, you don't have to take a stance on it. What you can say is that we're concerned about this bill because it would
Right.
take away our ability
Yeah.
to act on somebody that has a charge.
And we could leave it
of-
as simple as that, we don't need to come up
That's
with
right.
any kind of formal.
That's
Right.
right.
And
Just
the
the
chair's gonna say,
reason
like, do we need to
why.
write something up? I'm like, I don't think we need to write anything up, we just need to state it today and.
Well, we have to create that language today, so what's
Right.
the language? Do you have the language? You just said it, Brad, you wanna?
Sure, and I can just play this back and write it down and type it out and send it over to the author.
Well, and I'm not sure, I may be hearing two different things. One is we don't submit anything and we just state on the record today some concerns, and the other is actually submitting something. Is that?
No, we submit, but we have to compose our submission today because we don't meet again until after this bill's.
Can we authorize staff to do that, or can we?
Sure.
So we don't have to vote on a
We're gonna
language
vote
or
on it
anything?
today,
No,
We don't have to vote on it, she can just write it and send
I
it,
can write it and send it.
based on our discussion.
based on our discussion. Oh,
You
that's
wanna
all
see
good?
it?
I always send it to him because he puts his stamp on it, just like what we did for the support letter for 796 and
Yeah.
538, and anything else we've taken stances on in the past.
Okay.
Does everyone agree on what the concerns are?
You wanna just bullet point a few concerns, and then
Sure. What are your concerns?
you know better than we do.
Okay.
We can't, it doesn't seem that we can track multiple
The
offenders.
ability to evaluate and track.
So I would say the concerns lie upon in the enforcement of it just being able to take action on somebody that has a conviction for, or charge/conviction of a DUI or any kind of substance abuse.
Another substance abuse.
I would say it's something, the concern is that it supersedes regulations that we already have in place around substance abusers.
I would agree.
There you go.
Okay.
That's good enough.
But we're not taking an opposed stance, we're
Right.
just voicing a concern.
And
Just
then we
gonna
feel
voice
our
concern.
current regulations would better serve the protection of the public than what's proposed in this.
Right.
Yeah, I would use that exact language right there. You know the language. Okay.
If you want to look at that, on the very last page, it has the people that are in support of that bill.
Oh. Well, let's see, take a look.
and you can also, when this bill is heard in policy committee in the second house, you can go and testify and state your concerns, but say that you have not taken a formal position, but, these are the issues we see. If you wanted to,
Like our go-around approach, that's right.
if you wanted to do that.
It's like an ACLU type thing.
Yeah.
Right.
All in support of, like I said, in support of second chances.
Well, and, I'm sure that there's, sometimes we know that criminally speaking, there's not an even-handed approach in the application of the law to all people. And so this is perhaps wanting to address that. And by focusing our concern about healthcare practitioners,
Right.
it takes it out of, it's not about race relations or equality or anything like that. It's just, we just have this one little focus that we have to take care of.
So I have one ask. When you write that letter, if you could also send that to me so we can include your concerns in the department's analysis, because when we ask for letters of support and opposition from the author's office, they won't be sending that letter.
Are we good with that one?
Okay, the next one Rebecca asked me to cover was AB 241 by DeBobine, Personal Information Privacy State and Local Agency Breach. So this bill is also not assigned to me. It would require any state or local agency that is the source of a data breach where an individual's personal information is compromised or believed to be compromised to provide identity theft prevention and mitigation services at no cost to the affected individual. So the programs, if the data breach was caused by the program would have to pay for all the affected individuals to have identity theft protection for a period of time. Now, if it's, the breach is here at the department, if Breeze is hacked or, it would be the department that's responsible. She wanted me to bring this to your attention because there is a potential cost. This bill was actually proposed last year, and it was held in appropriations because statewide it carries a $562 million fiscal. So this bill is on suspense right now.
You mean just the cost to implement the bill was $562?
Statewide, yeah.
Or is that the possible
Possible
consequence
cost.
that they're predicting?
I
Right.
heard, you guys probably heard this more than I did, a tidbit of news last week that 8 or 9 countries were hacked. Did you hear this?
Mhm.
Just a couple days ago.
And, yeah, that they were, the data was being held ransom for a Bitcoin deposit.
Right, it's called ransomware, and it's a big thing right now with IT. As a matter of fact, the department is very on top of it when it comes to ransomware. They've sent out information to the programs. I believe that there was also something in the Eclipse not too long ago, within the last couple of weeks, about ransomware. So I know that the program and my staff is very aware of it. They don't go and click on anything that we don't already know who it's coming from. And even with that, we're very cautious about clicking on attachments when people are sending them and we don't know who it's coming from.
So what is the data that we, in this context, would actually be responsible for at worst case scenario?
So the only thing that I could see where the program would be liable for is if we actually sent, there are times that we send information to attorneys or something like that. Now, if we don't do it correctly and we don't encrypt our data before we send it, and that gets compromised in some way, then we would be liable. However, Breeze is pretty much the only thing that we have in terms of a website or something for our licensees or the consumers to go on to that may have the possibility of getting hacked. And if that was the case, then the liability would fall back on the department, because we don't do anything with the Breeze system. That's definitely maintained by the department.
Now, we're not obligated to take a stance on any of these.
No, she just wanted me to bring these bills to your attention so you know what could impact the committee.
All right.
So any questions on that bill? Okay, I'll move on.
Who determines fault in that scenario?
Yeah, it's
Stand
gonna
on.
be it's crazy.
This is the MSA.
Okay,
Fauna, let me ask you something, because it's 12:30 now.
do you want to go to lunch?
Well, I always want to go to lunch, but the question is, do you have a half an hour's worth of stuff, or do you think you have like another hour and a half?
Well, it depends on how many questions you guys have.
'Cause it seems like we bring up stuff if there's
We're about halfway through.
Yeah, we're about halfway.
should we have a 20-minute lunch break? Are people prepared to just have lunch? Do you want to have lunch while she's talking? That's not fair to you.
That's,
Will the recording shut off while we have lunch break?
I mean, I can leave it on or I can turn it off, whatever you want to do.
We're going to break until 1 p.m.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Works for everybody? Okay, and so you guys on the phone sites, please be on at 1 so we can confirm your presence so we can continue with business.
Will do.
Thank you much.
Okay, should we just stay on the line?
Not necessary. We're gonna go off the webcast here ourselves. So
We're going offline on the telephone, but if you guys have a WebEx up, you don't have to close out your WebEx. I'm leaving mine up on this site, so if you wanna keep it up, if you're following along that way, you can keep it up.
I was gonna suggest that they just leave their phone lines open if there's no members of the public there, so any of our little discussions won't be in violation.
I'm not sure how it works up there on that.
I can leave it on or I can
Just
turn it
leave
off.
the phone on.
Okay, that's fine.
That way we don't have to dial back in.
Exactly, you don't have to dial in or anything like that. But these cameras are gonna get turned off, right?
Can you tell us?
Yeah, I'm gonna have a slide up that says we're on a break.
That's fine.
And then I'll turn the
That's,
recording off.
that's, if that'll do and they can maintain their phone contact.
Sure.
1 o'clock. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Thank you, phone. Let's wait till she's on.
She gave a thumbs up.
We on?
Yep.
Okay, oh, I gotta get the microphone here, too. All right, Monday, May 15th, 1:05 PM, Naturopathic Medical Committee reconvenes. Do you want to confirm that we have all of our sites, Rebecca?
So I'm just gonna do a roll call to make sure everybody is here with us. Dr. David Field,
Present?
okay, Dr. Tara Levy,
Present.
Dr. Greta D'Amico,
Present?
Dr. Michael Hurt,
Never left.
all right, Dr. Theon Gordon,
Present.
Dr. Gregory Weiswasser,
Present.
Dr. Dara Thompson,
Present.
and Mr. Alexander Kim.
Present.
Perfect, thank you very much.
Any members of the public at any of our distal sites? We do have one member of the public here who's been sitting quietly the entire time.
Yeah, my name's John Burke. I work in the DCA's Executive Office, Board of Bureau Relations Manager.
Excellent.
Here taking notes.
They're taking notes?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Are you making observations?
Oh, you're here taking notes. I'm sorry, was it Joe Buck?
John Burke.
Oh, Burke,
Burke.
okay. I'm sorry, your accent, and it's a little hard to hear
No
without you.
problem, yeah.
So John Burke from the department is here, as well as our all-star Yafana. So, carry on, we're at AB 241.
I thought we finished that one out.
Did we?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
So we're jumping down to AB 767, Assemblymember Quirk Silva. It's a Master Business License Act. This bill will create within the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development a business license center to develop and administer a computerized master business license system. So what they envision is a website that's a one-stop shop where you can get all your licenses that you need to do business. So this would be licensing, anything you would need to file with Secretary of State, any local licenses, business licenses, they want this all to be in one place.
But not professional licenses.
They want that on there. That's why
That's
Rebecca
why we're-
asked me
that's
to,
why
right. They got this idea from a program in Washington where they have a website, but that website provides links. So how this bill is currently written, it would be,
Kind of different.
yeah.
But-
And I assume very costly. I looked for the the analysis isn't up yet, but this bill is going to be heard on the 17th in Assembly Appropriations. So
I know the assembly person that's sponsoring it, but like who's behind it?
I'm not sure who the sponsor is. I'm not assigned to this bill, sorry.
Okay. I'm just curious, like who would decide that we should use it?
Yeah,
Some
being.
rocket scientist. It actually is.
Because of the huge number of stakeholders, I mean, it would be all licensing programs, all local jurisdictions. I expect this bill to be amended a few times if it makes it out of appropriations.
Every little city in the state would be involved.
Right.
Right.
So, Rebecca just wanted me to bring that bill to your attention.
I don't think we need to take any action. I think there'll be plenty of people yammering way louder than we ever would.
Right, and our office is analyzing it, we're submitting an analysis in a position. That's actually already been submitted, but it's not approved yet, so I can't tell you what it was.
Rats.
So,
Okay.
any questions about that bill? No? Okay, now I'm jumping to AB 1053, Assemblymember Calderon. It's, this bill would make changes to Business and Professions Code Section 30 to state that information sharing, licensee information that's shared with the Community College Chancellor's Office only includes the last four of the social, not the entire social security number. So the information sharing was allowed by a bill last year. The Community College Chancellor's Office just wants data. So they want to be able to study, which professions they can provide programs for, or where people are becoming employed, just certain things like that. So this bill doesn't have a huge impact, but it is, it didn't pass the committee deadline, the policy committee deadline, so it's not going to be heard again until January, but Rebecca wanted me to put it on your guys' radar. Okay, the next one is AB 1190, Department of Consumer Affairs Breeze System. I'm actually assigned to this bill, so
Packet number 3, I think, now.
Oh, are we in?
We bounced back and forth between the two.
Wait,
Oh, I was going in order that's on
what's
the
the next one?
agenda.
1190, part 3.
1190.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
So AB 1190 by Assemblymember Obernolte would require the department to publish an update on a quarterly basis, the estimated start and completion dates of the Department of Technology's project approval life cycle process for programs previously scheduled to be on Breeze Release 3. Rebecca asked me to bring that up so I could tell you about the impact to the committee as a Release 1 program. The cost identified by our OIS office was absorbable, so there's no financial. So she was concerned that Release 1 and 2 programs might have to pay for this, but because it's absorbable, I don't expect any impact.
Sorry, Yvonne, do you know if it would decrease our costs once they are on board? Because I know in the beginning, it was supposed to be divided evenly based on staff members and that type of thing per program. And then all of a sudden, phase 3 didn't come on board. So it really pushed our costs up. Is this going to potentially bring our costs down?
That's going to depend on how many programs eventually come on Breeze. And that we don't know yet. Each program is currently identifying their business requirements and their needs for their licensee population. So, and determining if Breeze is the best program or if there's something else that would better serve their needs.
Is this just a way for the legislature to have more information about what's going on and
Right.
timelines?
They just want to know what's going on, and they want.
Seems to be a theme this year.
Yeah. So they want that on the DCA's website. Information on each of the Release 3 or formerly Release 3 programs.
And this cost is going to be borne by the department?
Right, our OIS office identified that costs are absorbable, so they're able to handle the workload without hiring or without having to contract out, so their current staff can handle the work associated with this bill.
Perhaps it would be useful just to know what's left to be done with Breeze, what's coming up.
It's each program that's formerly part of Release 3, they're going through and identifying their business needs and determining if Breeze fits those needs or if there's a better alternative.
So unlike phase 1 and 2 where we really didn't have an opt-out,
Yeah.
they at this point do, because there's other things that may be a lesser fee to them, cost-wise, so, and Breeze may not do what they needed to do, so they have some other options. With us, for our program, Breeze is at a point where it's giving us what we're needing. And, you know, we've worked through bugs. We have a couple of workarounds that we're still doing, but we have some new builds that are coming out in the next release. We're going to be able to go and pay the initial license fee online. Right now, we can do an application fee, and you guys can do a renewal online, but that second part, the initial license fee, they're not able to go online, but now they're going to be able to. I believe the end of May, that release will be out. So, and then, of course, if we get fictitious name permit program in place, that's something else that we'll have to do a build for. The CE audit, that module has already been built in, so as soon as we have our regulations in place on that, we're ready to just go forward. So yeah, we're at a point where Breeze is definitely working for us at this point.
Any more questions on that bill or Breeze? Okay, I'm jumping down to SB 27 by Senator Morrell, Professions and Vocations Licensees Military Service. This bill is set to be heard today, probably as we speak, in appropriations. This bill would require each program within the department to waive initial application and license fees for honorably discharged veterans. I don't expect this to impact the committee in a huge way because there currently isn't a pathway from military to licensure. So, I mean, Rebecca, do you know how many?
So is this, sorry, you know, I read this bill and I reread it, and I know that you said because there's no pathway currently, but we have several, licensees that are honorably discharged from the military. Is this bill that we're talking about right here? Okay, so if they weren't already licensed with us, they could give us their discharge paperwork, and as long as it was an honorably discharged, whether they took any kind of coursework within the military, they would be able to have the application and initial waiver or initial fee waived. That could potentially be a hit to our revenue. I don't know how many vets we would have coming. I'm not sure if it would be 1%, 2%. However, if we have quite a bit of them, it could potentially be a hit to our revenue. So it's just, I wouldn't say to oppose this in any means. I would just be, maybe I would want to know how many of our applicants would take benefit of this.
Yeah, we have no way of
And we
knowing.
just don't know right now, so.
Is that also where it says spouse or partner?
No, that's a
This
different
one's
bill, and
not-
that
that's a
bill's
different
not
bill.
moving forward.
Okay, because I don't think there's gonna be a large percentage of naturopathic doctors that serve in the military. But that's a pretty hard combo.
Maybe
But at
it'll be
any
an
point.
attraction, and then, you know, they get the first year free, and then it's like, you know, from then on, we're
Right.
getting
So
fees.
it'll be the $400 application fee plus the initial fee, which could be anywhere from $400 to $800.
So, I mean, it seems like a great thing in theory. It seems like, given our budget issues, it's potentially worrisome for us because we have such a tight budget. But is there anything that we can do about it? I mean, you really want to come out and oppose a bill like this?
Yeah, absolutely not. And I know that we are normally, this committee has been very supportive of our armed forces guys and gals. So I know that in the past, anything that came through like this with military, we've never taken an opposition to this. I would just really like to know what percentage of our licensees or applicants coming forward would be using this pathway in order to have that fee waived, just
You know,
just because of the crucial
I think it would be
position
very,
we're at
very
right
small.
now.
We could take a little survey
Very
from the
small.
schools and find out if there are a lot of veterans
Well,
graduating.
I can tell you from school, there were always a couple.
There's always a
You
couple.
know,
right.
And that's-
in our class
that's
or
fine.
whatever, there were a
Well,
couple.
you're currently required to ask if,
It's on our
Right,
application.
it's on the
Right.
application.
Right, a lot of them don't answer it. We're asking, it doesn't mean that they have to answer, and a lot of them opt
They just
not
leave it
to.
blank?
They just leave
Okay.
it blank.
Okay, well, some more background for this. This was also proposed last year. I was assigned to that bill. It was held on suspense in the Second House Appropriations Committee because of the large costs associated with it, especially with our big programs that have pathways like LVN and contractors. They would lose a lot of revenue based on this.
And it's not
So.
only our, you know, it's a much bigger arena that this is probably being discussed in, but I'm always asking the question, is this actually fixing a real problem or an imagined problem? Is there even a problem? And I don't know the situation if people in the military are actually financially so much worse off by the time they've completed naturopathic school. The ones that I've known actually are pulling an income from the military. They actually have an advantage over their peers.
I was smiling because I was actually asked that by the Veterans Affairs Committee when 1155 was going through last year. Yeah.
And how did you respond last year?
We haven't identified the problem. I mean, this bill wasn't sponsored by us, so it wasn't for us to answer. But he said that was something that he was thinking about. And he was asking if we knew of it. We don't know that it's a problem. We also don't know that it's not.
Yeah. I dare say often it's an advantage, that they are much better off than the people who haven't been in the military once they get through naturopathic medical school.
But I also think, you know, things like this are about respect for people who've
Right.
given their life to service. And I think that's its intention, but we do have to keep all of the agencies solvent.
And I don't know, like I said, I don't know with the small percentage that we've seen so far that's even pulled that, hey, I'm a vet card on us. We do have a small percentage of licensees that are vets that I know of. But since they're already licensed, I'm not sure that that's going to have any effect on us because this is just for applications and initial licensing. So, you know, it's one of those that if it does pass, we just kind of have to take it with a grain of salt and see how much it's affecting us. And then, you know, I don't know that there's anything.
And then that's where we are.
But that's where we are. So.
Well, my sense is that we don't need to take any action one way or another on this, just for information.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, and this bill will be put on suspense based on, I mean, I assume the fiscal impact is the same as last year, and it was enough to put it on suspense. Home stretch, we only have two more. SB 715 by Senator Newman, Department of Consumer Affairs Regulatory Boards, removal of board members. This bill has made it to the Assembly. It hasn't been assigned to be heard in committee yet. It was specified that the governor may remove from office a member of any board appointed by him or her for failure to attend board meetings. This bill's pretty straightforward. I mean, that's not an issue for the committee, but it has been an issue for some boards.
Yeah, we very rarely have somebody that's not able to make it.
I would have assumed that would already have been in place since he has the power to appoint the members. Can he, according to this bill, can he remove the ones if the other bill is passed that the legislature, the public members?
Those removals would be done by the appointing body, so.
So does this 715 allow is it just the governor can remove, or is it the appointing body can remove?
Let me see, let me look at the actual language. I'm
No,
not,
it's okay.
okay.
It sounds like a good idea.
I'm like,
Appointed by him, so it's just the governor.
mhm,
It's just the governor.
his own appointees.
Okay.
They might
How
wanna-
many meetings do we have to miss?
It's not really our, I think, they might want to add to it, any appointing body can do this, but that's up to them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you want to recommend
Yeah.
amendments?
No.
Okay, so we're on the last bill, SB 762 by Senator Hernandez, Healing Arts Licensees License Activation Fee Waiver. This bill was heard today in appropriations. I'm not sure what the fiscal was on it, so if it was less than 150,000, it would have been voted on today. If it was 150,000 or more, it'll go to suspense. But this bill would require the renewal fee to be waived for any healing arts licensee who certifies to his or her respective board that the license restoration is for the sole purpose of providing voluntary unpaid service to a public agency, not-for-profit agency, institution, or corporation that provides medical services to indigent patients in medically underserved or critical need population areas of the state. There are a lot of ifs that need to be met, so I don't suspect that this will impact the committee in a big way, but, I mean, she wanted me to present all bills that could impact you, small or large.
Can you remind us, if a person just doesn't renew their license, they haven't officially, quote, retired,
Right.
what, it just is inactive until they renew, or
So
what's?
it's not inactive, it's delinquent. So if somebody just decides they don't want to renew, it stays in a delinquent state for 3 years, and after the third year, it becomes a canceled license. It just, if they ever wanted to come back and renew, they wouldn't be able to after that third year. They'd have to go through the entire process of reapplying.
And then we discussed at our last meeting retirement, which is just a declaration,
Right.
and then it becomes inactive, retired status, and they can reactivate it once.
Right. We were thinking about having them put that into our bill, but they did not put that one in there as well. So that is something that we would have to do, a retired status. So if we move the bill through, get an author, and we may have to get that, because right now we do not have a retired status. So we'd actually have to get that in statute from what I understood, right?
So this would apply to licensees who are delinquent,
Pretty much.
really?
Yeah.
Right, but they would have to be offering their services free of charge
Right.
Or it
and
might
serving a
apply-
certain population.
Yeah, it might apply if we had retiree, if we did get the
Well, we do
retirement
have
thing,
it
they wouldn't have to
inactive.
pay to reactivate.
So okay, and I'm sorry, I might have misunderstood the first one. So we do have an inactive status license, and so what happens is they pay their fee, they don't have to meet those CE requirements. So this is for people that are, let's say they're in Arizona, they still want to keep their license here, but they don't want to have to meet those CE requirements that California has in place. So what they do is they pay their renewal fee, they go in and active here, which means they cannot practice here. But if they were to come back and say, okay, you know what, I want to go back to active status, what they would do is within the last 12 months, they have to show us a certain amount of CE credits that they've done in the last 12 months. And then at that point, they pay whatever fees, if there were any due, and then they could go back into an active status. Now, this bill here would definitely impact that. So if somebody was in an active status and wanted to come back here, that they could definitely go this route. If they were going to meet all of those qualifications for this bill, they could go and do the work in the
Community service.
community
What's the
service
fee
center.
for inactive?
Right now, it's the same, it's $800, and that's one of those things that we were kind of talking about a while ago, is that something that we should reduce the fee to? And I would say absolutely, but right now, because of us bringing fees up somewhere else, we could not drop that fee right now. It just doesn't make sense, and it wouldn't make sense for us to take something to the legislature and say, hey, no, we need to increase our fees, but we're gonna reduce this one over here. They'd be like, are you crazy? So
Well,
this is
except
something
for
that we
the
have
fact
to
that-
take in place.
That people, rather than go inactive for $800, they'll just go, well, the heck with it, and abandon their license altogether.
Some of them do, but we've got a nice little handful of inactive people, and
Okay.
they still pay their $800.
You know,
and they do what
the
they do.
price of 60 hours is thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, as you know, for us. So you do save a lot of money by paying the 800 to go inactive, just to not have to meet that requirement.
And then normally when they come back, they're already doing CE in whichever state they're already in, so they just show us, and as long as it meets our CE requirements, we can definitely accept those. So, and that is what we've done in the past, or they're taking something with the AAMP, or they're taking stuff for, med board or whatever, so definitely, that's what we've been seeing as a trend.
That's it?
That was the last bill Rebecca asked me to cover. We're done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions on anything, any of the bills we discussed, or any other?
Well, in the bills, and this pertains to our next agenda item, there was a proposal about making 1 out of 3 required meetings of a committee or board in rural
I'm assigned to that
area.
bill.
But in looking at that, I saw that the current statute says that we have to have one in Southern California every year.
Well, our act supersedes that, so ours just says that we need to have 2. It doesn't necessarily say that 1 shall be in Northern California and 1 in Southern California. We have, though, in the past, tried to at least do 1 down there, when we can afford it. But because of the cost associated with having meetings down in Southern California, we've opted not to since the last one that we had in San Diego, which was, I believe, 2 years ago.
We also do have open meeting sites in Southern California for pretty much every meeting based on the location of several of our board members.
Absolutely.
And it supersedes it because it's more recent, or?
So our act is specific to us, and I think our legal can kind of explain how that happens, but the general BMP, I think, right now
That's a question for Ryan.
says 1 in Southern California and 1 in, but some people, I mean, some programs have that they have to have 3 or 4 meetings, so it depends on what their act specifically states, but.
Yeah, I mean, typically, I'm not familiar with that provision in your Practice Act, but typically, if there's a provision in your Practice Act that would say, this committee shall have meetings here and here, oftentimes that's the more specific statute that governs the meetings of your committee.
I think our statute only requires 2 meetings a year.
Yeah.
There's no location specified. On the other hand, the legislature has charged us with making web access a priority, which is why we're meeting in this room today, because this room has equipment to provide the web. But I'm not sure where we would meet in Southern California to provide that. Plus, we'd have to pay travel for everybody here, the Northern Californians.
Well, you're not required to have web access. You are allowed to, and the legislature during your sunset process was just asking if you could do that when possible.
It sounded like a pretty firm request to me.
The web access, it opens up the access for all of the consumers to see what our process is and to make sure that we're being very transparent. And we're fine with that. I do know that if we book our meetings far enough out, that there are a lot of times where the webcasting team can be very accommodating, and they can go down to Southern California if they have advance notice and they have the staff for it. So for the September 11th meeting, I've already let one of the folks over there know that we're going to have one. However, we haven't pinpointed where we're going to have it yet. So as soon as we come up with a location, we have to let them know so that they can let us know whether they have the staffing and manpower to do that. So
I just want to acknowledge our members in Southern California that, there is nothing like actually being here in person. And I can't imagine sitting on a phone for 6 hours for a meeting by yourself.
Right.
And thank you for doing that, and we miss you, and we'd rather see you, and if we had the money, it'd be great to come down there once in a while and just make it a little more even in terms of our meeting distribution.
And the September meeting will be in the next fiscal year, so, we have another budget with travel. So if you guys are wanting to do a San Diego one, probably the September meeting or the following, well, I don't know if you guys really want to travel a whole lot come the winter session, but.
We discussed Irvine last time as being, I think it was Dr. Hurd, was it you? Who was saying that? That was the easiest place for everybody to get to.
Alex had a place
LA.
down there, but I'm not sure that he still has access to that, and we can definitely check with our Southern California guys and gals to see if anybody down there has it. But I know that Bastyr was nice enough to allow us facilities there, and we don't have to pay for those facilities, so it's always nice when we don't have to pay for a rental.
Wasn't it you, Dr. Hurd, that was saying it's actually easier for you to come up here than to go to San Diego?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess we've segued into our next agenda item, which is location and date of the next meeting. And you just mentioned, do we have September 11th, did we already discuss that date? on the calendar?
It's on the calendar because you guys have already said yes to it, so
Okay,
September
then.
11th.
We just don't have a location.
10 a.m., so either Sacramento or San Diego, or if somebody has a better place in mind, suggestions are great.
Kona,
I second Kona.
okay. That's easier to get to than Irvine, isn't it?
You guys in Southern California, you guys in Southern California, are you sitting there wishing we would have one down there finally? Or are you like, this is fine? I mean, how do you feel about it?
You know, Southern California is so beautiful, it's so wonderful to live in, that we don't mind sitting here talking to you.
See?
It's very nice here.
Yeah.
Why there are 12 million people joining us.
You know, for Southern California, if you want Irvine, I could talk to my friends at UC Irvine. They have a great alumni center that alumni and their friends could use.
Wasn't it, Dr. Hurt, was that not you that said that would be the easiest for you because it was so hard to get to San Diego?
Well, yeah, Irvine is definitely closer than San Diego. I think for those of us in LA proper, Irvine is probably an hour and a half, depending on the time of day. In San Diego, it's at least 2.5 hours.
And it's next to John Wood Airport, so it's close by.
Yeah, that's right.
Well,
So who can to ask Alex to look into that?
So, yeah, Alex, I can talk to you offline and if
that's
you,
fine.
sure, and then once we have an established location down there, I can let you guys know. And if we cannot get something in Irvine, then we would need to start looking at meeting facilities and getting contracts in
well,
place.
having said how much I acknowledge everybody in Southern California, I think it would be more responsible of us to meet here because of the cost savings until we have a good 2-year surplus in our budget.
I certainly agree with
You
that.
guys are okay with that, but for
I
the,
mean, Dr. Gurria, I'm fine with that. There's really more of you up there than there are of you and us down here.
Yeah, that makes sense, that's fine.
so we'll keep it in Sacramento.
Okay, perfect. So Sacramento it is for the 9/11 meeting date. And then if you guys would like to start thinking about your winter date, then we can go ahead and put that on file now. Or is that something you guys want me to send out a doodle for? It would be great. You know, the department always likes to know in advance when we're going to
So
be
would that be
When you say
December or
winter, are you
January?
talking
So
December
I
or
would
January?
say December, January, February-ish.
I'd throw it
We've
into
already
the
had
next
2
year,
meetings this
'cause
year,
we've already
this will be
had-
our third in
Yeah.
September, so probably,
We've had more meetings this year because we've had more business to take care
Yeah.
of. So 2 is our minimum. However, if there is business that we need to take care of, definitely we need to do as many as we need.
So let's
for
think
business.
about, what we did today is that we authorized forming the language on a number of items regulatory-wise that we are gonna vote on next time.
Right.
So what would we anticipate the outcome of those, whether we vote yes or no? Possibly there would be some revised further revisions or send it back to committee to work, but probably we would just seal it and it would go into process. So would you anticipate more things needed within a short time frame after September? Or do you think we'd be good to coast for a little while, like till January?
Sure, and with that question, let me ask you, Fauna, when is the SB 796 due to, its effective date? Be the third session. So I know the effective date's January 1st, 2018, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so that means that anything that's in that bill, if we need to get any kind of regulation in place for it, we need to start on that soon. So,
December.
I would say we would need to discuss those at the next meeting
Yeah.
and at least have you guys give me the authority to move forward with getting reg packages and stuff.
and then
ready
we
to
could
get
have
going.
stuff, and then we could approve it at the next meeting so that it's ready to go into effect once the bill goes through.
Mhm.
So what about December 11th, second Monday?
We can do a phone meeting? Because it's always a, I mean, we can definitely do that. If it's not a whole bunch of stuff and we just want to meet really quick to, either for you guys to say, hey, Rebecca, take this information, get those reg package started on these things. We could definitely do a phone meeting too, and that way you guys wouldn't have to come
That'd be
down for an
great.
hour worth of work.
Well, I think if it's in December, we want to do it earlier rather than later.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would opt for the Monday before.
The fourth.
Yeah.
The fourth.
Well, Thanksgiving is gonna be,
The week before.
Thanksgiving is
Your
10 days
relatives
before
will
the
have just
4th.
gone
it's the
home.
23rd, yeah, so we're good.
So you want to do December 4th phone meeting, teleconference?
Right, at 10 a.m.
Okay.
Fine.
And it could be maximum 3 hours probably.
Yeah, I
9 to
don't
12.
even know that it would be that long, but we'll
We'll know
know
more at
a
our next
little bit
meeting.
more at the next meeting, right? So let's just go ahead and put this placeholder here, and we'll just put teleconference.
And then, are there any other agenda items that anyone has to bring up for the next meeting? This is not your last opportunity to present them.
Right.
We just need to elect
Um,
officers.
I don't have any agenda items, but I
Until
was,
January.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Well, so that was on our last meeting, but because of the sunset, we opted to not do an election of officers because we
okay.
wanted to make sure that you were still available to answer questions to business professions.
Right.
So, I don't know if you wanna wait until the end of that bill going through the process in case we have to go back and testify or whatever. That's definitely up to you guys. If you wanna wait until January to do the officer elections, it is not mandated for us.
Or December even, once we
Or
get,
even
or September.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll discuss it.
Those guys-
Because we're gonna be getting a whole new gamut of
Right.
people come January.
So when will the appointments happen potentially for those of us who are vacating?
Whenever the governor sees fit to appoint them.
Oh.
Now, you guys have a year grace period, so as of December 31st, 2017, you guys have 1 year to sit in the position before you
You have to
guys
go.
have to vacate, right, so.
And that's David, myself,
normally-
Dr. Hurt.
Yes.
Right. It's the three of us.
And then Dr. Weisswasser will be 6 months after that. And whoever took his place, I'm not sure which one of you, I'll have to go back and look to see which, either Dr. Thompson or Dr. D'Amico took Barrett's place. So we have to see who's actually fulfilling the rest of that one.
Yeah, it was,
Yeah,
I think it was
Thompson.
Dara.
yeah, it was.
She's got the longest term
Okay.
with the program.
So then,
and the
I
whole thing.
think the way it reads is
You are.
that she finishes that one and then she gets a full 2 terms.
That's right.
Right.
If they were to allow her to stay, she can do a full 2 terms.
I had just a quick question about the pharmacy subcommittee meeting. Does that have to be in person or can it be?
So the way we've done it in both ways, we've done a teleconference. The majority of the time it's teleconference, but there have been 1 or 2 times in the past, I think prior to myself even, that they've met with Dr. Koshland and Dr. Hurt, but I'm not sure how.
So, does somebody have to be in Sacramento for that or?
It's noticed, I will be here in Sacramento, and
Okay.
normally if it's a teleconference, then I'll just do what we normally do with the teleconference sites. I'll open up a
Mhm.
phone line and everybody over a gen. You guys can carry out
Oh.
your,
Dr. Koshland and I are both in San Francisco, so it'd be very easy for us to meet in person, but Dr. Hurt and I want to do that by phone. Yes, we could easily be in the same room.
okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
Exactly.
Yep, and that'll work. And
Although it'd be lovely if Dr. Hurt wanted to join us.
It's true, Dr. Hurt, the food in San Francisco is much better than they have in San
Excellent,
Francisco.
really.
That is very true.
make a mini vacay out of that. All right, so yeah, and once you guys are ready, just we can talk offline, and as soon as you guys feel that you have what you need for a meeting, we'll do a check-in with you guys and have you guys agree on a date, and we'll go ahead and do the notice the same that we do with this committee. It has to be noticed for 10 days prior to your guys' meeting, and then, of course, we take minutes and all the good stuff.
Great, so I would work with you to get that taken care of. Okay, perfect, thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other business to wrap up or questions for the future? Yeah.
Sunset.
Sounds like that. Again, echoing Dr. D'Amico, I would like to thank the Southern California contingent for their time today and like, sitting by the phone. And thank for the members here for their travel and taking a day out of the office. It's vital.
Yes.
And thanks staff, who we have all these DCA people that are devoted to us.
They're great. I wouldn't be able to do my job without them.
Oh no, they're fabulous. Anything else?
And Yafana, fabulous job. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. You helped us a lot.
All right, it's 1:44 p.m. and we'll adjourn.
All right, great. Thank you.
Turn everything off so we can talk.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.